The phone rang 3 days before Thanksgiving, and my mother's voice carried that familiar tone of practiced inconvenience. "Aiden, honey, it's just too chaotic this year," she said, sighing as if the weight of hosting had suddenly become unbearable. "Maybe it's better if you skip coming." I stood in my kitchen watching Emma and Noah color turkey drawings at the table and felt my throat tighten. "Okay, Mom," I heard myself say, surprising us both with how easily the word came. "We'll have our own special Thanksgiving here." The silence that followed told me everything, but nothing prepared me for what I'd see 3 days later. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of crisp November air that always made me nostalgic for childhood holidays at my parents' house. Emma and Noah were still in their pajamas, excited about our special home Thanksgiving that I'd spent all week trying to make sound better than Grandma's traditional feast. I was scrolling through Facebook while my coffee cooled, seeing friends' posts about family gatherings, when my cousin Stephanie's video appeared on my feed. "Happy Thanksgiving from the whole crazy crew." Her voice chirped as the camera moved through my parents' dining room. My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. There, in perfect high definition, was my mother's Thanksgiving table set for what looked like 20 people. The dining room had been extended into the living room just like she did for Christmas when the entire extended family came. But it wasn't the size of the gathering that made my hands shake. As Stephanie's camera panned across the faces, I saw Tyler first. Tyler Morrison, who had cheated on my sister Madison with 3 different women before their spectacular breakup 2 years ago. He was sitting there carving turkey like he belonged, laughing at something my father said. Next to him sat the Patterson teenagers from next-door 16-year-old twins who I'd only seen in passing when visiting my parents. They were kids who mowed lawns for pocket money and barely knew my parents beyond a wave and hello. Yet there they were, phones out, taking pictures of my mother's famous sweet potato casserole. The camera kept moving, revealing more faces that made less and less sense. My mother's book club friends occupied an entire section of the extended table. Women who had their own families to visit, but somehow ended up at my parents' house. Jerry Thompson, my father's golf buddy who lived 2 hours away, sat with his arm around a woman I'd never seen before, presumably his latest girlfriend. "Look at this spread," Stephanie's voice continued enthusiastically. "Aunt Beth really outdid herself this year." The camera focused on the table's center, and my breath caught. They're displayed prominently between the turkey and ham were the handmade centerpieces I'd spent hours creating. Delicate arrangements of autumn leaves, mini pumpkins, and battery-operated fairy lights woven through branches I'd collected with Emma and Noah. I dropped them off 2 weeks ago when my mother mentioned she was thinking about decorating ideas for next year. "Those are gorgeous centerpieces," someone said off camera, and my mother's voice responded with pride. "Oh, I've been working on these for weeks. You know how I love my crafts." The video continued for another minute, showing my mother laughing, not looking chaotic or overwhelmed at all. She wore the burgundy dress I'd bought her last Christmas, her hair freshly styled, moving between guests with the grace of someone who'd been preparing for this day with excitement, not dread. I set my phone down, my hands trembling. Emma looked up from her coloring, her 8-year-old intuition already picking up on the shift in the room's energy. "Mommy, are you okay?" I forced a smile that felt like breaking glass. "Just fine, sweetheart. Hey, who wants to help me start cooking our turkey?" But my mind raced through the conversation from 3 days ago. The sighs, the exhaustion in my mother's voice, the way she'd said, chaotic, like it was a burden she couldn't bear. I thought about how I'd immediately offered to help to come early to cook dishes at home and bring them, how she'd cut me off with, No, it's better this way. We'll do something smaller next year." Noah had joined his sister in looking at me with concern. These 2 beautiful children who'd spent the last 3 days accepting that Grandma's house was too full for them this year, who'd helped me shop for a smaller turkey and ingredients for our own meal without complaint, even though I knew they'd been looking forward to playing with their cousins. I picked up my phone again, unable to stop myself from re-watching the video. This time I noticed more details. The good china was out, the one my mother only used for what she called proper company. Fresh flowers adorned every surface, not just grocery store bouquets, but arranged displays from the expensive florist downtown. The windows had new curtains I'd never seen before. In the background, I spotted my nephew Carter and my other nephew Dylan Madison's boys playing with what looked like new toys. The train set in particular caught my eye because of the way the camera lingered on it for a moment. The same vintage-style train set that Noah had carefully placed under my parents' coffee table during our last visit, asking Grandpa to keep it safe until he came back. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Did you see Stephanie's video? I had no idea Mom went this big this year. Wish you were here." I stared at those words. Madison genuinely didn't seem to know I'd been specifically uninvited, which meant our mother had spun some story about why I wasn't there. Probably something about me choosing to stay home being difficult, or any number of excuses that would explain my absence without making her look bad. Another notification popped up. 3 of my high school friends, who were still Facebook friends with Stephanie, had liked the video. Comments were starting to appear. "Beautiful family gathering. Your mom knows how to throw a party. Those centerpieces are stunning." Each comment felt like a small cut. I thought about responding, about commenting myself, but what would I say? That those were my centerpieces, that I'd been told there was no party, that my children were coloring paper turkeys at home because their grandmother found them too chaotic to include. Emma had moved to stand beside my chair, her small hand on my arm. "Mommy is at Grandma's house." She'd seen the phone screen. Of course she had. 8 years old and perceptive beyond her years, always watching, always understanding more than adults gave her credit for. "Yes, baby, it is. But I thought Grandma said it was too crazy for visitors." Noah joined us, abandoning his coloring to see what had captured our attention. His 6-year-old face scrunched in confusion as he recognized the familiar setting on my phone. "That's my train," he exclaimed, pointing at the background of the paused video. "Carter's playing with my train." I closed Facebook, my heart pounding with a mixture of hurt and rage that threatened to spill over in front of my children. How did I explain this? How did I tell them that Grandma had lied? That we weren't too much chaos, we were just unwanted. Sometimes plans change. I managed the words, tasting like ash. But you know what, our Thanksgiving is going to be even better. Just the 3 of us exactly the way we want it. But even as I said it, I couldn't stop thinking about my mother's voice on that call. The practiced exhaustion, the rehearsed reasons. She'd known exactly what she was doing when she called. She'd already planned this gathering, already invited. Tyler, of all people, already decided that her daughter and grandchildren were the only chaos she couldn't handle. The question that burned in my chest was simple. Why Emma stayed pressed against my side, her eyes moving between my face and the now dark phone screen. She'd inherited my ability to read situations, to sense when adult problems were being carefully hidden behind forced smiles. Noah, still focused on the injustice of his cousin playing with his train, hadn't yet grasped the full weight of what we'd just witnessed. "Can we call Grandma?" Emma asked quietly. "Maybe she forgot to invite us. Sometimes grown-ups forget things." The hope in her voice nearly undid me. She was trying to find a reasonable explanation, some way this could all be a misunderstanding. I smoothed her dark hair the same shade as mine and tried to find words that wouldn't break her heart or poison her against her grandmother. "I don't think we should call right now, sweetie. They're probably eating." "But we always eat with them." Noah protested, his lower lip beginning to tremble. "Every Thanksgiving we go to Grandma's. She makes the marshmallow sweet potatoes I like, and Grandpa lets me help with the turkey." He was right. Every single Thanksgiving of their lives had been spent at my parents' house. It was tradition as solid as the foundation of their home. Even through my divorce from Brandon last year, even through the awkwardness and the questions and the rearranged seating charts, we'd maintained that tradition. I opened Facebook again, unable to resist the self-torture. This time I clicked on Stephanie's profile to see if there were more videos or photos. There were. A whole album titled "Thankful for Family," with dozens of pictures already uploaded. Emma gasped softly as she saw the images. There was Madison radiant in a green dress posing with our parents. There was a group shot of all the guests raising their glasses in a toast. There was even a photo of the kids' table, where Carter and Dylan sat with the Patterson twins and some children I didn't recognize. "That's where I sit," Noah said, pointing at the kids' table. "Right there by the window. That's my chair." His assigned seat was occupied by a child I'd never seen before, possibly one of the book club ladies' grandchildren. The Thomas the Tank Engine placemat my mother always put out for him was there being used by someone else. Emma straightened suddenly. "Mommy, why is Aunt Madison's old boyfriend there? I thought he was mean to her." Leave it to children to remember what adults pretend to forget. Emma had been 6 when Tyler's cheating scandal exploded across our family. She'd seen Madison crying, heard the hushed conversations watched as Tyler was effectively banned from all family gatherings. Yet there he was slicing turkey like the past 2 years hadn't happened. "I don't know, honey," I admitted because lying felt worse than the truth. Noah tugged on my sleeve. "Can we go now? If we hurry, we can still have marshmallow potatoes." "We can't go, buddy," Grandma said. I stopped. What had Grandma said exactly? She'd said it was too chaotic. She'd said maybe we should skip. She'd made it sound mutual, like she was doing me a favor by releasing me from an obligation. Emma's eyes narrowed an expression so adult it startled me. "Grandma didn't want us to come, did she?" We talked about it and decided, "No." Emma interrupted, her voice steady but thick with approaching tears. "She didn't want us. That's why everyone else is there except us." Noah's face crumpled as his sister's words sank in. "Did we do something bad? I didn't mean to spill juice on her carpet last time. I said sorry, I cleaned it up." No, baby, this isn't about spilled juice." I pulled him onto my lap, feeling his small body shake with the effort of not crying. "Then why?" His voice broke on the word. "Why doesn't Grandma want us at Thanksgiving?" I didn't have an answer that would make sense to a 6-year-old. I didn't have an answer that made sense to me. Emma climbed onto my other knee and we sat there, the 3 of us huddled together on one kitchen chair, while our abandoned turkey drawings lay scattered on the table. Sometimes, I began carefully, adults make choices that hurt other people's feelings, even when they're family, even when they love us. "But did she lie?" Emma asked. "When she said it was too crazy because it looks like a party, not crazy." I couldn't deny it. The evidence was right there in full color on Facebook. It seems like maybe she wasn't completely honest with us. Emma's tears finally came silent streams down her cheeks. She wasn't crying like a child who'd been denied something. She was crying like someone who'd discovered trust could be broken by people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. Noah wiped his nose on his pajama sleeve. "I want to get my train back." "We'll get your train," I promised, though I had no idea how. "Are we still having Thanksgiving?" Emma asked. "Of course we are, our own perfect Thanksgiving just for us." "But it won't be the same," she said, and she was right. I reached for my phone again, intending to put it away to focus on salvaging our day. But I noticed something odd on Facebook. Stephanie's video was gone. The photo album was still there, but the original video that started this discovery had vanished. Curious, I navigated to my mother's profile. It took a moment for my brain to process what I was seeing, or rather, what I wasn't seeing. My mother's profile was displaying differently. The cover photo was there. Her profile picture smiled back at me, but where her posts should have been, where her information usually displayed, there was nothing. I refreshed the page. Still nothing. Then I tried to send her a message, thinking maybe I'd say something, anything to understand what was happening. But the message button was gone. The option to post on her timeline had vanished. Understanding dawned with cold certainty. I opened my Facebook settings and checked my block list even though I hadn't blocked anyone. Then I realized I needed to check something else entirely. I searched for my mother's name in the Facebook search bar. Her profile didn't appear. I typed it exactly as it appeared on her account. Nothing. I even tried searching through Madison's friend list. I could see Madison's profile, her friends, but when I looked for our mother, it was as if she didn't exist. My mother had blocked me on Facebook. The timing was too precise to be coincidental. Stephanie posts the video, I see it, and within minutes, my own mother blocks me to prevent me from seeing anything else, which meant she'd been monitoring who was viewing the posts, which meant she knew I might see them, which meant, "Mommy, you're squeezing too tight," Noah whispered. I loosened my grip on my children, not realizing I'd been holding them like life rafts. My mind raced through the implications. My mother had deliberately excluded us from Thanksgiving, lied about the reason, and then blocked me on social media to prevent me from discovering the truth. But Stephanie's video had slipped through before the digital door slammed shut. Emma wiped her tears with determined hands. "We don't need them," she declared with forced bravery. "We don't need any of them for Thanksgiving." But even as she said it, Noah whispered the question that would haunt our entire day. What did we do wrong? I kissed the top of his head, breathing in the little boy's scent of strawberry shampoo and innocence. "Nothing, baby. You did absolutely nothing wrong." My phone buzzed with another text from Madison. "Mom says you decided to do your own thing this year. Your lost Tyler brought the most amazing pie." I stared at the message, the casual cruelty of it burning in my chest. Your loss. As if I'd chosen this. As if I'd decided that sitting in my kitchen with two heartbroken children was preferable to being surrounded by family, and Tyler bringing pie to the family gathering he'd been banished from while my children sat crying in their pajamas. "Can we make our own marshmallow sweet potatoes?" Noah asked hopefully. "We can make whatever you want," I promised, standing up and settling them back on their chairs. "In fact, let's make this the best Thanksgiving ever. Who says we have to do things the traditional way?" But even as I tried to inject enthusiasm into my voice, Emma's earlier question echoed in my mind. Did we do something bad? The worst part was I didn't know. I didn't know what we'd done to deserve exile from our own family's Thanksgiving table, but I was going to find out. The morning dragged on as I tried to maintain normalcy. We made breakfast special pancakes shaped like turkeys that made Noah smile briefly. Emma helped me prepare the small turkey I'd bought, though her usual chatter was replaced by contemplative silence. Every few minutes, one of them would remember something about Grandma's house, some tradition we were missing, and the sadness would creep back in. By noon, I couldn't stand it anymore. While the kids watched the Thanksgiving parade on TV, I went to my bedroom closet. On the top shelf, carefully arranged, were the wrapped Christmas presents I'd bought throughout the year. I always started early picking up perfect gifts when I found them saving money by spreading out the purchases. But there in the front sat the Thanksgiving gifts. Not everyone exchanged presents at Thanksgiving, but in our family, my mother had started a tradition of gratitude gifts years ago. Small presents to show appreciation for family members usually opened after dinner. I pulled them down one by one. The crystal vase for my mother purchased from an antique store in August when I saw it, and immediately thought of her collection. It had taken 3 paychecks to afford, but the delicate etchings of roses matched her grandmother's pattern exactly. I'd imagined her face when she opened it, how she'd run her fingers over the familiar design. Next came my father's gift, a set of premium golf clubs I'd found on sale but still stretched my budget to breaking. He'd mentioned wanting to upgrade his driver during our last phone conversation in October. I'd researched brands, read reviews, consulted with the pro shop at his club to make sure I got exactly what would improve his game. Madison's present weighed heavy in my hands. A designer purse she'd been eyeing since spring, which I'd finally found at an outlet mall. I'd driven 2 hours each way and waited in line for 40 minutes to get it. Inside the purse, I'd tucked a silver bracelet with charms representing her 2 boys, something sisters share, something that said I understood her journey as a single mother, too. There were more. A cashmere scarf for Aunt Margaret if she attended, though now I wondered if she was at the table, too. Toy sets for Carter and Dylan that coordinated with interests they'd developed since last Christmas. Even a cookbook for Stephanie, who'd mentioned wanting to learn French cuisine. I sat on my bedroom floor surrounded by wrapped evidence of my love and planning. Each gift selected with care, purchased with sacrifice, wrapped with anticipation of the moment it would be opened. The tags were already written in my careful handwriting with love and gratitude. An idea formed born of hurt and anger, and something else, something that felt like self-preservation. I arranged all the gifts on my bed and took a photo with my phone. The afternoon light from the window caught the metallic wrapping paper, the carefully tied bows, the pristine presentation of thoughtfulness that would never be received. I opened the family group text, the one that included my parents, Madison, Jason, and the extended cousins. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment. Was this petty? Maybe. Was it necessary? Absolutely. I typed, "Returning these today. Happy Thanksgiving." Then I attached the photo and hit send. The message showed as delivered, then read. One by one, the read receipts appeared. Mom, Dad, Madison, Jason, Stephanie. Everyone saw it at the same time, presumably while sitting around that Thanksgiving table. I was too chaotic to join. My phone immediately exploded with activity. Messages came so fast I couldn't read them in order. Madison, Aiden, what are you doing? Mom, this is completely inappropriate. We're trying to have a nice meal. Stephanie, OMG drama. Dad, call me, now. But it was Jason's private message that stopped me cold. Mom made us promise not to tell you. She said you'd ruin the mood because of the divorce. I stared at those words, reading them over and over. The divorce. My divorce from Brandon had been finalized 8 months ago. 8 months of rebuilding, of creating stability for my children, of learning to be alone after 10 years of marriage. And somehow that made me toxic to Thanksgiving. Before I could process this revelation, more private messages flooded in. Madison, I honestly didn't know she told you not to come. She said you wanted to do your own thing. Stephanie, your mom said you were being difficult about Brandon not being invited, so you chose to stay home. Each message painted a different picture, a web of lies my mother had spun to explain my absence without taking responsibility for orchestrating it. I screenshot everything. Jason's admission, Madison's confusion, Stephanie's revelation about Brandon, evidence of the elaborate deception my mother had created. The group text continued to ping with messages I didn't read. I was focused on Jason's words. You'd ruin the mood because of the divorce. I thought about every interaction with my mother since the divorce was finalized. The subtle comments about broken homes, the way she'd sighed when I'd returned to my maiden name, how she'd asked more than once if I was sure. I couldn't work things out with Brandon even after I'd told her about his gambling addiction that had drained our savings, his refusal to get help, the way he'd blamed me for not earning enough to cover his debts. My phone rang. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. I declined the call. The third time I saw Emma watching from the doorway. Is that Grandpa? Yes, honey. Are you going to answer? I looked at my 8-year-old daughter, wise beyond her years, already learning that family could hurt you in ways strangers never could. Not right now. I need to think first. She nodded and padded back to the living room where Noah was building a fort with couch cushions, creating his own safe space in a world that had suddenly become less secure. The fourth call came with a text. Answer the damn phone, Aiden. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I looked at the photo I'd sent at thousands of dollars worth of gifts that represented not just money I didn't really have, but emotional investment in a family that had decided I was too damaged to include. Another private message, this one from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message from someone named Brittany, who identified herself as Jerry's new girlfriend. Hi, I'm so sorry if I took your spot at dinner. Your mom said you couldn't make it because of work. I wouldn't have come if I'd known. Work. Now I was working on Thanksgiving in my mother's version of events. The lies were multiplying, each one tailored to the audience. To some, I was being difficult about Brandon. To others, I was working. To family, I'd chosen to stay home. But to me, she'd simply said I was too much chaos. My father's texts grew more insistent. This is childish. You're embarrassing your mother. Stop being dramatic. Dramatic. The word stung. I thought about the quiet acceptance in my voice when I'd agreed not to come, the way I'd swallowed my hurt and tried to make the best of it for my children, the effort I'd put into creating a happy alternative Thanksgiving. Where was the drama in that? But sending the photo of the gifts, that was dramatic. I owned that. It was the first honest thing that had happened all day. Madison called next. I almost answered, but Emma appeared again. "Mommy, the turkey timer went off." Right. We were still having Thanksgiving, our own quiet, small, rejected Thanksgiving. "I'll be right there, sweetie." I stood up, leaving the gifts scattered on my bed, physical reminders of a generosity that wasn't wanted. My phone continued buzzing, but I left it behind as I went to tend to our turkey to maintain the fiction for my children that this was all somehow okay. 20 minutes later, I couldn't resist checking the damage. 47 messages in the family group chat, 12 missed calls, 3 voicemails. But it was a new message from Jason that made my blood run cold. "Dad's on his way to your house. He's really pissed." I looked out my front window. Sure enough, a familiar silver sedan was turning onto my street, moving at a speed that suggested urgency and anger. I had maybe 30 seconds to decide how to handle this. 30 seconds before my father brought their Thanksgiving drama directly to my door where my children were trying to salvage their holiday. 20 seconds. I smoothed my hair and checked my reflection. I was wearing old jeans and a turkey-themed sweatshirt Emma had picked out casual clothes for a casual day at home. But underneath the comfortable exterior, something had shifted. The acceptance was gone, replaced by an anger that felt like armor. 10 seconds. I heard the car door slam, heavy footsteps on my walkway. The doorbell rang with aggressive insistence. Emma and Noah looked up from where they were setting our small table, their faces immediately worried. "It's just Grandpa," I said calmly. "Keep setting the table. I'll be right back." I walked to the door, my spine straight, and prepared to face whatever came next. The doorbell rang again, followed immediately by pounding that rattled the frame. My father had never been a patient man, but this level of urgency was unusual even for him. Through the peephole, I could see his face flushed red, whether from anger or the November cold, I couldn't tell. "Aiden, open this door right now." Emma and Noah stood frozen by the dining table, forks still in their small hands. I gave them what I hoped was a reassuring smile. "Keep setting the table, loves. Grandpa just needs to talk to me for a minute." I opened the door partway, not enough to invite entry, just enough to acknowledge his presence. The blast of cold air carried the scent of his cologne mixed with something else. Wine. He'd been drinking at dinner. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He didn't wait for pleasantries. "Sending that photo, trying to ruin your mother's dinner." "I'm having Thanksgiving with my children," I replied, keeping my voice level. "The same children who weren't invited to their grandmother's table." "Nobody said you weren't invited." "Dad, please don't lie to me. Not today." His face grew redder. "Your mother said it would be chaotic. She suggested, and you agreed. Nobody forced you to stay home." "Suggested," I repeated the word slowly. "Is that what we're calling it?" "Don't get smart with me, young lady. You're 32 years old, not 15. This tantrum with the gifts is beneath you." Tantrum. There it was again, the minimization of my feelings into something childish and dismissible. "Those gifts represent months of saving, Dad. Months of planning for a holiday I thought I'd be spending with my family." "Then bring them next time. Christmas is right around the corner." "Will we be invited to Christmas, or will that be too chaotic as well?" He shifted uncomfortably, and in that moment I saw something flicker across his face. Guilt. He knew. Of course he knew. "Aiden, can I come in? It's freezing out here." I glanced back at my children, who were pretending not to listen while very obviously hanging on every word. This confrontation belonged outside, not in their safe space. "No. Whatever you need to say, you can say it from there." His jaw tightened. "Fine. You want to do this on your doorstep like common trash. Your mother is in tears. Tears you've ruined her entire holiday with your vindictive little stunt." I ruined her holiday. The laugh that escaped me was bitter. She told me not to come, then blocked me on Facebook when I discovered the truth. But I'm the vindictive one. She didn't block you. You're being paranoid. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen, my mother's profile, unsearchable, unreachable. His eyes widened slightly, caught off guard by the evidence. She must have done it by accident. You know she's not good with technology. Dad, stop. Just stop. Jason already told me she made everyone promise not to tell me about the dinner. Madison thought I chose not to come. Stephanie was told I was being difficult about Brandon. Jerry's girlfriend thinks I'm working. How many lies did she tell to keep us away? That's when I noticed it. Really noticed it. My father wasn't just flushed from anger or cold or wine. He was wearing his Navy dress uniform, the one he only pulled out for the most formal occasions. His shoes were shined to military perfection. Why are you in uniform, Dad? He straightened automatically, a lifetime of military bearing taking over. Your Aunt Margaret appreciates when I honor my service. Aunt Margaret, my mother's wealthy sister who lived in California and rarely visited. The aunt who'd married well invested better and never had children of her own. Margaret's there. Of course she's there. She flew in specifically for Thanksgiving. The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't like. Margaret with her money and her traditional values. Margaret who'd always made subtle comments about the sanctity of marriage and keeping families together. Is that what this is about, Margaret? Don't be ridiculous. But his denial came too quickly, too forcefully. Mommy. Noah's voice drifted from inside. The timer for the pies is going off. Just a minute, sweetheart. I called back, then turned to my father. I need to tend to my children's Thanksgiving dinner, the one they're having in their pajamas because getting dressed up for grandmas seemed pointless after being disinvited. Nobody disinvited you. Dad, we didn't even make it to the B list. Tyler made the cut. The man who cheated on Madison, who you personally threw out of your house 2 years ago, is sitting at your table right now. But your grandchildren are too chaotic. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Tyler, that's different. He and Madison have been talking about reconciliation. This was news to me. Madison and I texted regularly, and she'd never mentioned anything about Tyler beyond hoping he'd lose his new real estate job and have to move back to Ohio. Since when? Look, that's not the point. The point is you're creating unnecessary drama. Just come for dessert. Bring the kids. We'll work this out like a family. Like a family? I echoed. Which family, Dad? The one that includes me and my children, or the performance being staged for Aunt Margaret? His face went from red to purple. How dare you? How dare I point out that Mom's suddenly hosting formal dinners with you in dress uniform when Margaret visits, that my divorce makes the family look bad to her, that having a single mother with 2 kids at the table might affect whatever Mom's trying to accomplish. You're way out of line. Am I? Then tell me I'm wrong. Look me in the eye and tell me this has nothing to do with Margaret and her money. He couldn't. His gaze shifted to the door frame, to the wreath Emma had made at school, anywhere but my eyes. Your mother just wants a peaceful holiday, he said finally. Peaceful. I nodded. And we're not peaceful. We're chaos. That's not what she meant. Then what did she mean, Dad? Help me understand. Because from where I'm standing, she called me 3 days ago and uninvited me and my children from a family holiday. She then told different lies to everyone about why we weren't there. She blocked me on social media to keep me from finding out. And now you're here in your dress uniform that you hate wearing, yelling at me for being upset about it. He deflated slightly, the anger giving way to something more complex. Aiden, it's complicated. No, it's not. It's actually very simple. You chose. Mom chose. You chose Tyler over us. You chose keeping up appearances over your grandchildren. You chose Margaret's approval over our presence. We didn't choose Tyler over anyone. He's literally carving the turkey in Stephanie's video, Dad. The turkey Noah usually helps you with, sitting at a table decorated with centerpieces I made, while my son cries about his train set being played with by other kids. Something shifted in his expression at the mention of Noah. What train set? The vintage one he left at your house last visit. The one he specifically asked Grandpa to keep safe. It's being played with in the background of the photos. He saw it. He cried. For the first time since arriving, my father looked genuinely uncomfortable. He'd bought that train set for Noah at an estate sale, spent hours researching its history, teaching Noah about different types of engines. It was their thing. I didn't know it was out, he said quietly. There's a lot you don't know, Dad. Like how Emma asked if we did something bad. How Noah thinks spilling juice on Mom's carpet is why we're not welcome. How I had to lie to them about why Grandma's house is full of everyone except us. You didn't have to lie. You could have told them. Told them what? That their grandmother finds them too chaotic. That their grandfather went along with it. That their family considers them disposable when someone with money comes to visit. He flinched at disposable, and I knew I'd hit close to truth. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. Explain it to me. Make it make sense. He stood there, this man who'd taught me to stand up for myself, who'd raised me to value truth and loyalty wearing his uniform like armor while defending the indefensible. Your mother, she's been planning this visit with Margaret for months. There are considerations. Financial considerations. His silence was answer enough. Is she changing her will? Is that what this is about? Aiden, just tell me the truth, Dad. For once today, just tell me the truth. He looked over his shoulder at his car, probably wishing he'd never made this drive. When he turned back, his face had aged years in minutes. Margaret's been making noise about her estate. She's traditional. She believes in certain values. Your mother thought what, that hiding her divorced daughter and grandchildren would secure an inheritance? She thought presenting a united, stable family would make the best impression. And I'm not stable because I left a gambling addict who drained our accounts. He held up his hands. I'm not saying it's right, but you went along with it. He stopped, probably realizing that any explanation would only dig the hole deeper. Behind him, I saw curtains move in the house across the street. The neighbors were getting a show. The divorced woman and her father arguing on Thanksgiving. How chaotic. How unstable. Dad, I need you to leave now. Aiden, please. Just come for dessert. We can smooth this over. Smooth it over, like wallpaper, over a crack. Pretend it didn't happen. Show up smiling so Margaret sees one big happy family. Would that be so terrible for the sake of peace? I thought about that question, really considered it. The old Aiden would have said yes, would have bundled up the kids driven over with the gifts, smiled through the hurt, kept the peace at any cost. But that Aiden had believed her family's love was unconditional, that Aiden hadn't watched her children cry over being excluded, that Aiden hadn't yet realized she'd been assigned a value based on her marital status, and that value was less than zero. Yes, I said finally. It would be terrible. It would teach my children that their feelings don't matter, that they should accept being treated as second class in their own family, that keeping up appearances is more important than truth. You're being overdramatic, and you're being a coward. The word hung between us sharp and final. My father, the decorated veteran, the man who'd faced enemy fire, flinched as if I'd slapped him. How dare you? How dare I call it what it is? You're so afraid of Mom's reaction of disrupting Margaret's visit, of losing out on whatever financial carrot is being dangled, that you're willing to sacrifice your relationship with your daughter and grandchildren. Nobody's sacrificing anything. Aren't you? When was the last time you stood up to Mom about anything? When did you stop being the man who taught me right from wrong and become someone who just follows orders to keep the peace? His face crumbled, then the anger collapsing into something rawer. It's not that simple when you're married for 40 years, Aiden. You make compromises. This isn't a compromise, Dad. This is capitulation. This is wrong, and you know it. A small voice behind me made us both turn. Mommy, the pies are burning. Noah stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. Not because of the pies, I realized, but because he'd heard everything. His grandfather yelling his mother being called dramatic, the confirmation that we really weren't wanted. "Go help Emma, baby. I'll be right there." But he didn't move. He stood there staring at his grandfather with those huge brown eyes. Brandon's eyes, the eyes my mother probably didn't want to see at her dinner table. My father took a step forward. "Noah, you were supposed to save my train," Noah said quietly. "You promised to keep it safe for me." The words were a gut punch to us both. Such a small promise, such a simple trust. And even that had been broken in favor of other children. Better children who came from intact families. My father's hand reached toward his grandson, then fell uselessly to his side. "I'm sorry, buddy. I didn't know." "Yes, you did," I said softly. "You just chose not to care." He turned back to me, and for a moment I saw my real father, not the uniformed prop at Margaret's dinner table, but the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd walked me down the aisle, who'd held Emma and Noah minutes after they were born. "Aiden, you should go, Dad. Your dinner's getting cold." He stood there for another moment, torn between the family behind him and the family in front of him. Then he straightened his uniform, becoming once again the man my mother needed him to be. "This conversation isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is." I closed the door quietly, denying him the dramatic slam he probably expected. Through the window, I watched him walk slowly back to his car, his military bearings slightly stooped. Noah flew into my arms and I held him tight, breathing promises into his hair that I wasn't sure I could keep. Behind us, smoke was indeed beginning to drift from the kitchen. "Come on," I said, forcing cheer into my voice. "Let's save those pies. We're not letting anything else ruin our Thanksgiving." But as we rushed to the kitchen, Emma pulling blackened pies from the oven while Noah opened windows, I couldn't stop thinking about my father's visit. He'd come to scold me about the gifts, but he'd revealed so much more. Margaret, money, traditional values. My divorce hadn't just ended my marriage. It had apparently ended my value as a daughter, a sister, a family member worth including. And everyone from my mother to my father to Tyler at the turkey station had decided that was acceptable. The question that burned as we scraped burnt crust off salvageable pie filling was simple. What else had they decided about me without my knowledge? And more importantly, what was I going to do about it? After my father left, we salvaged what we could of the pies. Emma carefully cut away the burnt edges, while Noah arranged the good parts on a clean plate. Their resilience amazed me, these two children who'd had their holidays shattered, but still found ways to make it work. We sat down to our small feast, and for a while I let myself believe we could pretend everything was fine. But the questions wouldn't stop circling in my mind. Margaret's presence changed everything. My wealthy aunt had always been the family's golden goose childless, with a fortune that had to go somewhere. I remembered now the careful dance my mother had performed over the years whenever Margaret visited. The special china, the perfect meals, the carefully curated family presentations. My phone, which I'd left on the counter, buzzed constantly throughout dinner. I ignored it, focusing instead on Noah's story about his school Thanksgiving play and Emma's detailed plans for her winter break science project. But when we finished eating and the kids went to change out of their pajamas, I finally checked the accumulating messages. 17 missed calls, 63 text messages. The family group chat had exploded into accusations, defenses, and digital choosing of sides. But it was a voicemail from my brother Jason that made me stop cold. "Aiden, you need to call me. Away from everyone. Dad just had it out with Mom about the whole thing. He's been drinking more since he got back, and he said some things. About Margaret, about her will, about why you're really not here. This is bigger than just Thanksgiving." I stepped onto my back deck, the November air sharp against my skin. Jason answered on the first ring. "Thank God," he said, his voice low. "I'm hiding in Mom's bathroom. This place is a madhouse." "What's going on?" "Dad came back like a hurricane. Started yelling at Mom about lying to you. She tried to play it off, but he'd been drinking wine since he left your place and just unloaded. Aiden, Margaret's been here since Tuesday." Tuesday. 3 days ago, the same day my mother called to uninvite me. Yeah, and get this, she's not just here for Thanksgiving, she's been interviewing us. Interviewing? Like we're applying for a job, asking about our life plans, our values, our children's education. Dylan had to recite his multiplication tables. Carter played piano for her. Madison had to show her business plan for her boutique. My stomach turned, and Mom knew this was happening. Knew Aiden she orchestrated it. She's been coaching everyone. That's why Tyler's here. Mom's been pushing Madison to reconcile because Margaret believes in keeping marriages intact and working through difficulties. But Tyler cheated with 3 different women. Doesn't matter. A bad husband is better than no husband in Margaret's book. And in Mom's, if it means... He paused. I could hear voices in the background, someone calling his name. If it means securing Margaret's inheritance, she's worth about $12 million, Aiden, and she's been making noises about where it should go. Mom's desperate to keep it in the family. $12 million. The number sat heavy in the air between us. So I was excluded because I'm divorced. It's worse than that. His voice dropped even lower. Mom's been telling Margaret things about your marriage, about Brandon, but not the truth. What has she been saying? That you threw away a good marriage because you were bored, that you poisoned the kids against their father, that you're unstable, possibly bipolar, definitely going through some kind of breakdown. Each word hit like a physical blow. My own mother spinning lies about my mental health, my character, my parenting. But everyone knows Brandon had a gambling problem. He admitted it in court. It's in the divorce records. Mom's convinced Margaret those were your accusations to get a better settlement. She's painted Brandon as a victim of a vindictive wife. And Aiden, Brandon's been backing her up. The room spun slightly. What do you mean, backing her up? He's been in contact with Mom. Regular phone calls, coffee meetings. She's been getting his version of events and presenting it to Margaret as truth. He was at dinner. I said, the realization dawning with horrible clarity. Dad said something about Brandon not being invited, but he was there, wasn't he? A long pause. Yes, he arrived about an hour after the video was posted. Sat right next to Margaret. Charmed her with stories about being a devoted father denied access to his children by a bitter ex-wife. I gripped the deck, railing my knuckles white. Brandon, who'd lost $30,000 of our savings in online poker. Brandon, who'd taken out credit cards in my name. Brandon, who'd screamed at me when I'd tried to get him help. That Brandon was sitting at my parents' table playing the victim. Jason, he has supervised visitation only. The court decided that based on evidence. How can Mom? She knows Aiden, she just doesn't care. Margaret's money matters more than truth, more than you, more than Emma and Noah. The kids. I breathed. Does Margaret know about them beyond Mom's lies? She asked to see recent pictures. Mom showed her some from last Christmas. Margaret commented that Emma looks willful and Noah seems soft. Her words. Willful and soft, my daughter's strength and my son's gentleness reduced to character flaws by a woman who'd never met them. There's more, Jason continued. I heard Mom and Margaret talking yesterday. Margaret's not just deciding about money, she's thinking about requiring certain conditions for any inheritance. What kind of conditions? Family counseling, but not real counseling. Some kind of religious program about traditional family values. She wants anyone who gets money to go through it. And Aiden, she specifically mentioned that divorced family members would need to show commitment to healing their broken families. She wants me to get back with Brandon. It wasn't a question. That seems to be Mom's interpretation. She's been dropping hints to Madison too about Tyler, making it seem like reconciliation would solve everyone's problems. I thought about Madison, my strong sister, who'd finally escaped Tyler's serial cheating, being pressured to take him back for money. About myself being erased from family events because I'd chosen safety and sanity over a toxic marriage. Does Dad know all this? He figured it out today. That's why he's drunk and yelling. He thought it was just about keeping you away for one dinner. He didn't know about Brandon or the counseling requirement or how deep Mom's lies went. Voices grew louder in the background. Someone was knocking on the bathroom door. I have to go, Jason whispered urgently. But Aiden, document everything. Screenshot the messages, save the voicemails. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Wait, one more thing. Has Mom said anything about Christmas? Margaret's staying through New Year's. Mom's already planning the Christmas gathering. And from what I've overheard, you're not on the guest list for that either. The line went dead. I stood on my deck phone in hand as the full scope of my mother's betrayal crystallized. This wasn't just about one dinner. This was about systematically erasing me and my children from the family narrative to secure an inheritance. Inside, I could hear Emma reading to Noah, her voice patient as he sounded out words. My children deemed too chaotic for a family dinner, too willful and soft for a rich great-aunt's approval, were creating their own small circle of warmth in a world that had suddenly become very cold. I thought about the gifts still scattered on my bed, the crystal vase my mother didn't deserve, the golf clubs my father had failed to earn, the purse for a sister being manipulated back into an abusive relationship. But most of all, I thought about Brandon at that table, the man who'd stolen from his own children's college funds, who'd screamed at me when I'd cut off his access to our bank accounts, who'd told the judge I was an unfit mother because I worked full-time. That man was carving turkey with my family while my children ate pie with burnt edges. My phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. Hi, this is Tyler. Your mom gave me your number. Just wanted to say thanks for understanding about me and Madison working things out. Your support means a lot. My support for a relationship I'd just learned about. That didn't exist except in my mother's fantasy of profitable reconciliation. I screenshot that too, adding it to the growing file of evidence Jason had told me to collect. Evidence of what I wasn't sure yet. But I knew with bone-deep certainty that my mother's Thanksgiving performance was just the beginning. Inside, Emma called out, "Mommy, can we make hot chocolate and watch a movie?" "Of course, sweetheart," I called back, forcing normalcy into my voice. But as I walked back into my warm kitchen where my children waited with innocent expectations of comfort and love, I made a decision. My mother might be willing to sell our relationship for Margaret's money, but I wasn't going to make it easy for her. The real question was, how far would she go to keep her secrets buried? And more importantly, how far would I go to expose them? That evening, after the kids were settled with their hot chocolate and a movie, I couldn't stop replaying Jason's words. My mother talking to Margaret about me, Brandon backing her up, the calculated assassination of my character to secure an inheritance. I needed more information, but I didn't know who to trust anymore. My phone rang. Madison. I almost didn't answer, but something in me needed to hear her voice to gauge where my sister stood in all this. Aiden, what is going on? Mom's locked herself in her room, Dad's drinking scotch like it's water, and Aunt Margaret keeps asking pointed questions about everyone's life choices. Where are you calling from? My car. I had to get out of there. Tyler won't leave, and he keeps trying to hold my hand in front of everyone. Mom practically shoved us together for photos earlier. Madison, what's this about you two reconciling? A long silence. There's no reconciliation. He showed up uninvited 3 hours early, and Mom just welcomed him in. Told me to be civil. Then during dinner, she kept talking about forgiveness and second chances, while Margaret nodded approvingly. You need to know something. Mom's been telling Margaret you two are getting back together. What, Aiden? I haven't even spoken to Tyler in over a year. The restraining order just expired last month. Restraining order. This was news to me. I never told you. After the cheating, he started showing up at my work, my gym, the boys' school. Nothing technically illegal, just always there. I finally got a temporary order. Mom said I was overreacting. My sister's voice carried a weight I recognized. The exhaustion of not being believed, of having your reality questioned by people who should protect you. Madison, there's more you need to know. I told her about Jason's call, about the inheritance conditions, about our mother's campaign to paint us both as unstable women who'd thrown away good marriages. "Oh my God," she breathed. "That's why Mom's been so weird lately. Last week she asked if I'd considered that maybe Tyler's cheating was a cry for help. A cry for help, Aiden. Like sleeping with my best friend was therapy. She's desperate for Margaret's money, desperate enough to throw us both under the bus. But why Mom and Dad aren't poor? They have their retirement, the house is paid off. I'd been wondering the same thing. Our parents were comfortable, not wealthy, but certainly not struggling. Why this sudden desperation for Margaret's millions? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Aiden, I have to tell you something about Brandon being here." Madison's voice dropped. "He cornered me in the kitchen earlier, said he's been documenting every time you've been difficult about visitation, building a case to change the custody agreement." My blood ran cold. "What kind of documentation?" "Text messages where you asked to change pickup times. Photos of the kids looking sad after transitions, though he admitted he took them out of context. He even mentioned that you'd been unstable on Thanksgiving, sending hostile messages to the family and causing drama." "But that just happened today." "I know, but he already had it typed up on his phone ready to add to some file. Aiden, I think he and Mom have been planning this together." I sank onto my couch, the weight of betrayal crushing. My ex-husband and my mother conspiring to paint me as an unfit parent. The cruelty of it took my breath away. "How long do you think they've been talking?" "I found a Christmas card from him in Mom's desk last week when I was looking for stamps. From last year, 9 months ago when your divorce was still being finalized. He thanked her for her support during this difficult time." 9 months. While I was fighting for fair custody arrangements, while I was proving Brandon's gambling addiction in court, while I was protecting my children's futures, my mother was corresponding with him behind my back. "Madison, you have to get out of there. Don't let them pressure you about Tyler." "I'm trying, but he blocked my car in. I'm waiting for someone to move so I can leave." "Aiden, I'm scared. The way Mom's talking, the way she keeps mentioning Margaret's generous nature and looking at me, it's like she's willing to serve me up on a platter." "Screenshot everything. Record conversations if you can. Jason said to document it all." Already started. I have 3 videos of Mom pushing Tyler on me while Margaret watches. And Aiden, I overheard something else. Mom told Margaret that you're preventing the kids from seeing their father, that you're using them as weapons in the divorce. The irony was breathtaking. Brandon had supervised visitation because he'd driven drunk with the kids in the car, something that came out during the divorce proceedings. I'd never prevented visits. I'd insisted on supervision for their safety. "The truth doesn't matter to her anymore," I said quietly. "No, it doesn't. And Dad, Jason said he figured it out today. He's drunk and angry, but apparently not angry enough to actually stop it." Madison laughed bitterly. "Sounds about right. Stand up to Mom or protect his comfortable life. We know which one Dad always chooses." In the background, I could hear muffled voices from her phone, male voices getting closer to her car. "Madison." Tyler and Brandon are walking toward my car, together, like they're best friends. I have to go. "Be careful. Text me when you're home safe." "Aiden, I'm sorry I didn't know about you being uninvited. I would never have gone if I'd known the truth." "I know. We're going to get through this. Both of us. We survived bad marriages. We can survive our mother's greed." The line went dead. I sat in the growing darkness of my living room, the TV casting shifting lights across the walls. Emma and Noah were engrossed in their movie, blissfully unaware that their uncle by marriage was outside their aunt's car with their father. 2 men who had no business being at a family gathering, much less collaborating. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was familiar. Margaret's California area code. "Aiden, this is your Aunt Margaret. I've heard concerning things about your recent behavior. Your mother has shown me the disruptive messages you sent during our family gathering. I think it would be best if we spoke directly. I'll be in town through New Year's and expect you to make time for a proper conversation about your future and your children's well-being. The audacity of it stole my breath. My future, my children's well-being, as if she had any right to either. Another text followed immediately. I've asked Brandon to join our meeting as he has insights into your current state of mind that might be helpful. Your mother will arrange the details. I stared at the messages, fury building in my chest. They were orchestrating some kind of intervention with my gambling addict ex-husband as a character witness. But then I thought about Emma and Noah innocent in all this and realized something important. My mother might be willing to sacrifice truth for money. Margaret might be willing to use her wealth as a weapon. Brandon might be willing to lie for advantage. But I wasn't willing to let them. I opened my laptop and began typing, email after email to my divorce attorney, forwarding screenshots documenting the timeline explaining the situation. If Brandon wanted to play dirty, he'd find I'd learned a few things about protecting myself during our divorce. Next, I searched through old emails until I found what I was looking for. Communications from Brandon's gambling addiction counselor, who testified during our divorce. Reports about missed sessions, relapses the time he'd stolen from his own mother to fund his habit. All part of the court record, all admissible. All proof that my mother's narrative was built on lies. A new text interrupted my work. Jason again. Dad just threw a plate at the wall. Mom's crying. Margaret announced she's updating her will next week and wants to meet with each of us individually first. This is insane. Before I could respond, another text, this one from my father. You've ruined everything. Your mother's inconsolable. I hope you're happy with yourself. I almost laughed. I'd ruined everything by refusing to disappear quietly, by not playing my assigned role in their performance for Margaret. From the living room, I heard Noah laugh at something in the movie. Such a pure sound, untainted by adult manipulations and greed. That's what I was fighting for. Not Margaret's money, which I'd never wanted anyway, but my children's right to exist, authentically in their own family. My phone rang again. The caller ID showed my childhood home number. I let it go to voicemail, but the ringing started again immediately. Emma appeared in the doorway. Mom, who keeps calling, just some people who need to wait until I'm ready to talk to them, I said, pulling her into a hug. Is it about Thanksgiving? I looked into her wise 8-year-old eyes. Yes, baby. It's about Thanksgiving and some other complicated grown-up stuff. Are we in trouble? No, sweetheart, we're not in trouble. Sometimes adults make problems more complicated than they need to be. But you and Noah and I, we're perfect just as we are. She studied my face, then nodded. I'm glad we had our own Thanksgiving. It was quieter, but nicer. Me too. As she returned to the movie, I thought about the word she'd chosen. Quieter, not chaotic. Our thrown-together last-minute Thanksgiving with burned pies and pajamas had been quieter than my mother's carefully orchestrated performance. My phone lit up with another call from home. This time I answered. Aiden. My mother's voice was thick with tears, exactly as expected. How could you do this to me? Do what Mom refused to be erased, decline to pretend my children don't exist. You're twisting everything. I just wanted a nice holiday. With my ex-husband at your table, with my sister's ex too, with everyone except your actual daughter and grandchildren. Brandon and Tyler are trying to make amends. Brandon is trying to take my kids, and you're helping him. Do you understand that you're helping a gambling addict build a case against me? Your own daughter. A sharp intake of breath. How dare you speak to me like that? How dare I tell the truth? How dare I refuse to smile while you serve me up to Margaret as the family failure? How dare I protect my children from your greed? It's not greed. It's about family legacy. Margaret's money could secure everyone's future. Everyone except mine, apparently. Tell me, Mom, what's Brandon's cut? What did you promise him for playing along? Silence, long enough to be damning. You did promise him something. When she spoke again, her tears had dried, replaced by something harder. If you would just be reasonable, Aiden. If you would just try to work things out with Brandon, show Margaret that you value family unity. Family unity. You blocked me on Facebook to hide your lies. I was protecting you. People would have asked questions about why you weren't there. The twisted logic of it made my head spin, protecting me by excluding me, loving me by lying about me. Mom, I'm going to hang up now, but I want you to know something. I have every text, every email, every piece of evidence about what you've done. If Brandon tries to use this manufactured drama against me in court, I'll expose all of it. Your lies to Margaret, your collaboration with him, all of it. You wouldn't dare. The family reputation you invited 2 cheating ex-boyfriends to dinner and lied about your daughter's mental health. What reputation is left to protect? Aiden, please. Just come talk to Margaret. Explain that you're working on yourself, that you're open to counseling, that you want what's best for the children. I do want what's best for them, which is why they'll never sit at a table where their mother is required to pretend their father didn't steal from them. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up my hands shaking, but my resolve firm. The battle lines were drawn. On one side, my mother's greed and Margaret's money. On the other, my children's right to have a mother who refused to pretend abuse was love. The war for our family's truth had officially begun. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay in bed, replaying conversations, analyzing betrayals, planning defenses against attacks I could see coming. By morning, I'd made lists, mental and physical, of what I needed to do to protect myself and my children from the storm my mother had created. The kids woke up to the smell of pancakes, my attempt at normalcy after yesterday's chaos. They didn't need to know that I'd been up since 4 consulting legal documents and reviewing custody agreements. They just needed breakfast and a mother who seemed steady. "Can we put up Christmas decorations today?" Noah asked, syrup dripping down his chin. "Since we're staying home more now." The innocence of his acceptance broke my heart. He'd already internalized that we'd be staying home, that Grandma's house was off limits. 6 years old and adapting to rejection with the resilience children shouldn't need. "Of course we can," I said. "We'll make this the most decorated house on the street." Emma looked up from her plate. "Will we go to Grandma's for Christmas?" I dreaded this question. "I don't think so, honey, but we'll make our own wonderful Christmas." "Good," she said firmly. "I don't want to go where they lie to us." My phone charging on the counter began its morning symphony of notifications. I'd turned off the sound overnight, but the screen lit up repeatedly with messages I wasn't ready to face. "Mom, your phone is having a party," Noah observed. "Let it party without me for a while," I said, refilling his juice. But I couldn't ignore the knock at the door that came just as we finished breakfast. Through the peephole, I saw Stephanie, my cousin, holding a manila envelope and looking uncomfortable. "Kids, go get dressed," I said. "We'll do decorations after." They scampered upstairs as I opened the door. Stephanie stood there in yesterday's clothes makeup, smeared clearly, having not been home yet. "Can I come in?" she asked. "I have something you need to see." I let her in, noting the way she clutched the envelope like it might escape. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where my children had eaten Thanksgiving dinner in their pajamas. "I couldn't sleep last night," she began. "After everything that happened, all the yelling and crying and accusations. So I did something I probably shouldn't have." She slid the envelope across to me. "I went through your mom's office while everyone was dealing with the drama. I found these." Inside were photocopies of documents, legal-looking papers with Margaret's letterhead, financial statements, and at the bottom, a contract of sorts. "Read the 3rd page," Stephanie instructed. I flipped to it and my blood ran cold. It was a draft agreement dated 2 months ago outlining terms for potential inheritances. The language was dense with legal terminology, but certain phrases leaped out. Recipients must demonstrate commitment to traditional family structures. Divorce parties may be eligible upon proof of reconciliation efforts. Minor children's trusts contingent upon stable 2-parent households. She's not just talking about leaving people out of the will, I said slowly. She's putting conditions on the children's inheritance, too. Stephanie nodded. Keep reading, page 5. Page 5 was worse. It outlined a family restoration program that potential heirs would need to complete, a 6-month course on biblical marriage principles and child rearing in faith. Successful completion required testimony from restored partners that reconciliation was genuine. Brandon would have to testify that I'd genuinely tried to reconcile, I said, understanding dawning. That's why Mom's been meeting with him. She needs his cooperation to make me eligible. And Tyler for Madison, Stephanie confirmed. But look at the last page, the part about current marriages. The final page discussed how current inheritances would be structured. Intact marriages would receive lump sums. Divorced individuals who completed reconciliation would get trusts with conditions. But there was a special section for resistors to family restoration. Those who refused reconciliation efforts would not only be excluded from inheritance, but would be cited in the will as examples of family breakdown, with their stories used as cautionary tales for younger generations. Margaret intended to weaponize her will using shame as much as money to control behavior. She wants to make examples of us, I breathed, to literally write our failures into her will as warnings to others. That's what the fight was really about last night, Stephanie said. After you sent the gift photo and your dad came back drunk, things exploded. He accused your mom of selling out her daughters for money. She said she was trying to save you from yourselves. Then Margaret announced she'd moved up the timeline. She was going to wait until after Christmas to finalize everything. But after yesterday's drama, she wants to meet with everyone this week and finalize her will before she leaves. Your mom panicked. Started calling Brandon right there at the dinner table, telling him they needed to accelerate their plan. I stared at the documents. You heard her say that. Everyone heard her. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Said something about how you'd forced her hand with your stunt, and now they'd have to move to phase 2 early. Phase 2. Stephanie shifted uncomfortably. I don't know what that means. But Brandon seemed to. He left right after, said he had calls to make. My mind raced. What could phase 2 be more false documentation? An ambush meeting with Margaret. Something worse. There's one more thing, Stephanie said quietly. I heard Brandon on the phone in the parking lot when I was leaving. He was talking to someone about filing emergency paperwork Monday morning. Something about parental alienation and holiday visitation interference. Monday, 2 days away. He was going to use my family's Thanksgiving drama as evidence that I was keeping the children from their extended family, that I was alienating them from their grandparents. But he was at the dinner, I protested. He was part of the chaos. Doesn't matter. Your mom will testify that she invited everyone, including you, and you chose to keep the kids away out of spite. She already practiced the story on Margaret last night. I put my head in my hands. The web they'd woven was intricate and sticky. Every move I made to protect myself could be reframed as unstable behavior. Every boundary I set could be cast as alienation. Why are you telling me this? I asked Stephanie. You could get in trouble with the family. She was quiet for a moment. Because I have a daughter too. She's only 3, but watching your mom willing to sacrifice Emma and Noah for money, it made me sick. What happens when it's my turn? When Margaret decides my life choices aren't traditional enough? We sat in shared understanding. The family we'd grown up believing in, the one that gathered for holidays and supported each other through hard times, was revealing itself as conditional. Love based on performance. Acceptance with a price tag. What are you going to do? Stephanie asked. I don't know yet, but I'm not going to reconcile with Brandon. I'm not going to pretend abuse is acceptable for the sake of inheritance. And I'm absolutely not going to let them use my children as pawns. Your mom said something else last night. When she was crying in her room, Madison went to check on her. I heard your mom say that she'd already spent some of Margaret's money. Not literally, but in her head. She'd planned renovations trips, investments. She'd counted on it so completely that not getting it would feel like losing something she'd already owned. That explained the desperation. My mother had built castles in her mind with Margaret's millions. Now she was willing to sacrifice her actual daughters to protect her imaginary wealth. Stephanie stood to leave. I should go before anyone realizes where I am, but Aiden document everything, and maybe talk to a lawyer about what Brandon's planning. Don't let them blindside you Monday. After she left, I stood in my kitchen holding proof of my family's betrayal. Upstairs, I could hear my children playing, unaware that their futures were being negotiated by people who saw them as obstacles to wealth. I picked up my phone, finally ready to face the messages. 47 texts, 23 missed calls, 12 voicemails. But it was the email that caught my attention, from Brandon's lawyer, sent at 11:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving. Ms. Mitchell, please be advised that my client intends to file an emergency motion regarding custody modification based on recent events demonstrating parental alienation and family disruption. We encourage you to seek counsel immediately. He'd already started. While his children slept in their beds, safe and loved, their father was building a case to take them from me using pain my own mother had helped create. I forwarded the email to my lawyer with shaking hands. Then I walked upstairs to where Emma and Noah were playing their innocent joy, a stark contrast to the adult machinations swirling around them. Ready to decorate? I asked, forcing brightness into my voice. Yes, they chorused. As we pulled out boxes of Christmas decorations, I made a silent promise. Margaret might have millions. My mother might have manipulation. Brandon might have lies. But I had something more powerful, the truth, and the fierce love of a mother who refused to sell her children's security for any price. The war for my children had officially begun, and I intended to win. Saturday morning passed in a blur of Christmas lights and forced cheer. Every ornament the kids hung felt like defiance against the darkness pressing in from all sides. I helped Noah untangle strings of lights while Emma carefully placed her handmade decorations from school, but my mind kept circling back to Brandon's email, emergency motion, custody modification. The words pulsed like a migraine. Just after lunch, while the kids were outside building a snowman in the thin November snow, I finally opened my laptop to check my email properly. What I found there stopped my heart. My lawyer, Janet Chen, had already responded to my forward, but it wasn't just a reply. It was a full email chain, and she'd managed to get copies of documents Brandon's lawyer had prepared but not yet filed. Aiden, call me immediately. Brandon's filing is worse than we anticipated. He's not just claiming alienation. Look at the attached documents. I opened the attachments with trembling fingers. The first was Brandon's declaration, 6 pages of twisted truth and outright lies. According to his version of events, on Thanksgiving Day, despite repeated attempts to include her in family festivities, Ms. Mitchell chose to isolate the children from their extended family, causing severe emotional distress. When family members attempted to rectify the situation, she responded with hostile messages designed to create conflict and discord. This pattern of alienating behavior has escalated since our divorce with Ms. Mitchell, consistently undermining the children's relationships with paternal and maternal relatives who maintain contact with me. I had to read it twice to process the audacity. He was claiming that my exclusion from Thanksgiving was somehow my choice, that I was the one creating conflict. But it got worse. Page 3 included what he called supporting evidence, screenshots of my text about returning gifts, but edited to remove context. Photos from Thanksgiving showing him with my parents, Madison and others painted as family members concerned about the children's isolation. And then the gut punch and affidavit from my mother. I read her sworn statement with growing nausea. I, Elizabeth Mitchell, being of sound mind and body, do hereby attest that my daughter, Aiden Mitchell, has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior since her divorce. Despite numerous attempts to include her in family gatherings, she has chosen to isolate herself and her children. On Thanksgiving, I extended an invitation to the entire family, but Aiden refused to attend, citing imaginary conflicts. Her subsequent hostile messages disrupted our peaceful family gathering and caused distress to all present, including Brandon Hayes, who has remained committed to maintaining family bonds despite the divorce. I am deeply concerned about my grandchildren's well-being. Aiden has prevented regular contact using the children as weapons in her ongoing vendetta against their father. Brandon has shown nothing but patience and dedication, attending family functions and maintaining relationships that Aiden seeks to destroy. I believe it would be in the children's best interest to have increased time with their father, who provides stability and encourages family connections rather than isolation and conflict. Each word was a dagger. My own mother swearing under oath that I was unstable, vindictive, and harmful to my own children. The invitation that never existed was now a legal fact. My exclusion had become my choice. Brandon's gambling addiction and financial abuse had vanished, replaced by his patience and dedication. But Janet had found something else, a second chain of emails between Brandon's lawyer and someone named Patricia Stern. It took me a moment to place the name Margaret's attorney. The emails were careful, couched in legal language, but the intent was clear. Margaret was considering establishing trusts for the children, but wanted assurance of stable guardianship. Brandon's lawyer assured her that proceedings were underway to rectify the custodial imbalance, and that Mr. Hayes would be better positioned to manage any fiduciary responsibilities by early December. They weren't just trying to change custody. They were positioning Brandon to control any inheritance the children might receive from Margaret. My phone rang. Janet. "Tell me you've read everything," she said without preamble. "I've read it. Janet, my mother's affidavit is perjury. We can prove that. But Aiden, there's something else. I had my investigator do some digging after getting these documents. Brandon's been busy." "What do you mean?" "He filed a change of address 3 weeks ago. Want to guess where he's living now?" My stomach dropped. "No. He's renting the apartment above your parents' garage, the same unit they used to rent out on Airbnb. He's been living 50 feet from your mother for almost a month." I sank onto my couch. That's why she's been so involved. He's right there feeding her lies every day. It's worse. My investigator found something interesting. Your mother didn't just rent to him. She's charging him $1 a month. Nominal rent to make it legal, but essentially free housing. And Aiden, the lease is for 2 years. 2 years. My mother had given my gambling addict ex-husband free housing for 2 years. But wait, Janet continued. There's more. I pulled property records. Your parents refinanced their house 6 weeks ago, took out a significant amount of equity. Want to guess what they needed the money for? I don't know. But I was starting to see the shape of something awful. Your mother has been having financial troubles. Nothing dramatic, but enough. Some bad investments, some overspending based on anticipated inheritance from Margaret. She's been counting on that money for years, apparently. Living above their means, assuming it would come through. The refinance was a Band-Aid. So when Margaret started making noises about conditions, your mother panicked. She needs that inheritance not for luxury, but to avoid losing the house. And if that means sacrificing you and providing false testimony to secure it, apparently, that's a trade she's willing to make. I thought about my childhood home, the place where I'd felt safe and loved. Now it sheltered Brandon, housed my mother's betrayal, stood as collateral for her greed. What about the emergency filing, I asked. Here's the interesting part. It hasn't been filed yet. The email was a scare tactic, hoping you'd panic and agree to mediation on their terms. But the documents are ready. If you don't play ball, they'll file Monday morning. What are they hoping to achieve? Based on these documents, they want to flip the custody arrangement. Brandon would become primary custodial parent, with you getting every other weekend. They're claiming parental alienation, mental instability, and failure to encourage family relationships. Your mother's affidavit is their cornerstone. But the court already determined custody based on his gambling addiction, the drunk driving incident, which they're claiming you exaggerated or fabricated. They have your mother saying she's never witnessed any concerning behavior from Brandon. They have photos of him at family gatherings you were absent from. They're building a narrative that you're the problem parent. I watched my children through the window, Noah's mittened hands patting snow, while Emma directed the snowman construction. They had no idea their world was under attack. "Janet, what do we do?" "First, we file our own emergency motion. Monday morning, before they can file theirs. We ask for a restraining order preventing Brandon from filing false pleadings. We include evidence of the conspiracy between him and your mother. We show the court what's really happening." "What evidence do we have?" "Your cousin's testimony about Thanksgiving. The screenshots showing you were specifically uninvited. The Facebook blocking. The fact that Brandon was at a dinner you were excluded from, then claimed you chose not to attend. We paint the real picture, a grandmother so desperate for inheritance, she's willing to lie under oath to steal custody from her own daughter." "Will that be enough?" "There's one more thing. The drunk driving incident with Brandon, I pulled the police records. Your mother was the one who called 911 that night. She reported him driving erratically with the children. Her witness statement from that night completely contradicts her current affidavit." Relief flooded through me. She can't claim she never saw concerning behavior when she's the one who reported it. "Exactly. But Aiden, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. Your mother's already shown she's willing to lie under oath. Brandon's living in her backyard plotting against you. Margaret's money is motivating everyone. You're going to need to be strong." "What about the kids? Do I tell them anything?" "Not yet, but document everything. If they say anything about missing grandma, write it down with dates and times. If Brandon misses supervised visitation, document it. Every text, every email, every interaction. We're building a case that shows who's really putting the children first." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my house processing the full scope of betrayal. My mother hadn't just excluded me from Thanksgiving. She'd been planning this for months. Housing Brandon, refinancing the house, preparing false testimony, all while smiling at me, accepting my gifts, pretending to be my mother. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number, another California area code. "Aiden, this is Patricia Stern, your Aunt Margaret's attorney. I'm calling to schedule a meeting regarding your children's potential trust funds. Would Monday afternoon work for you? Mr. Hayes has indicated he'll be available to discuss custodial arrangements that would best protect the children's financial interests." I didn't respond. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Monday morning, while they were preparing their ambush meeting, I'd be in court filing papers that would expose the entire conspiracy. Emma and Noah burst through the door, cheeks red with cold eyes, bright with joy. "Mommy, come see our Snow family," Noah exclaimed. "We made a mommy and 2 kids." "No, Daddy," I asked, though I knew the answer. Emma shrugged. "We don't need one. Our Snow family is perfect, just like us." I hugged them both, these resilient children who'd already learned to create complete families without all the traditional pieces. They didn't need Margaret's money or my mother's approval or Brandon's manufactured concern. They needed exactly what they had, a mother who would fight the whole world to keep them safe. "You're right," I told them. "Our family is perfect exactly as it is." But even as I said it, I prepared for the battle ahead. Because perfect or not, our little family was under siege. And Monday morning, I would begin fighting back with the most powerful weapon. I had the truth documented, dated, and filed with the court. The conspiracy might be vast, but it had one fatal flaw. It required everyone to maintain their lies perfectly. And in my experience, liars always eventually trip over their own fabrications. I was counting on it. Sunday arrived with deceptive calm. I'd spent Saturday night organizing documents, creating timelines, preparing for Monday's court filing. The kids thought I was working on Christmas preparations, and in a way, I was. Protecting their stability was the only gift that mattered. Around noon, my phone rang. Stephanie again, but this time she sounded drunk. "Aiden, I'm at the worst family brunch in history, and I need to tell you something before I lose my nerve." "Where are you?" "Your mom's house. Command performance for everyone still in town. Margaret's holding court like the Queen of England, and your mom's playing perfect hostess, while Brandon serves mimosas like he's the son she always wanted. Brandon's serving drinks at my mother's house. Oh, it gets better. He's wearing an apron that says "World's Best Dad" and talking about taking the kids to Disney World once things get sorted out. Your mom's practically glowing with pride. I gripped the phone tighter. Stephanie, you sound upset. What happened? I know I already brought you those documents, but there's more. Last night, I couldn't stop thinking about it all. So this morning, I had breakfast with my mom, and she told me something about your mom and Margaret from years ago. Aiden, this goes back further than you know. What do you mean? 20 years ago, when we were kids, there was another inheritance situation. Remember, Great Aunt Dorothy. I vaguely recalled a stern woman who'd visited occasionally when I was young. She left everything to charity, right? Wrong. She was going to leave it to charity because she didn't approve of how modern the family had become. Too many divorces, she said. Your mom spent 2 years convincing her otherwise. Made everyone pretend things were perfect whenever Dorothy visited. Hide pregnancies if the parents weren't married. Pretend separated couples were still together. I don't remember any of this. You were young, but my mom remembers. Your mom successfully got Dorothy to change her will. The family got the money, and your mom got a taste for inheritance manipulation. You're saying she's done this before? I'm saying this is her playbook. Create the perfect family tableau for the rich relative. Hide anyone who doesn't fit. Rewrite reality if necessary. She pulled it off once and got about $300,000. Now, with Margaret's millions at stake, she's playing the same game, but bigger. Through the phone, I heard voices in the background, including one that made my blood run cold. My children's voices. Stephanie, are Emma and Noah there? Oh God, Aiden, I thought you knew. Brandon brought them for his supervised visitation. Except it doesn't look very supervised. He's got them performing for Margaret like trained seals. Emma just had to recite some poem and Noah's showing off his reading skills. His visitation is supposed to be at the supervised center with a court-appointed monitor. He can't just take them to my mother's house. Your mom's acting as the supervisor. She got herself approved last month, apparently. Didn't anyone tell you? My hands shook with rage. No one had told me. Brandon's supervised visitation was court-ordered to take place at a neutral location with a trained professional. Not at my mother's house with Margaret conducting inheritance interviews. I need to come get them now. Wait, there's more. I'm in the bathroom again, but I can hear Margaret talking to them. She's asking Emma about her family wishes and whether she misses having Daddy at home. She's recording it, Aiden, on her phone. She's interviewing my 8-year-old about our divorce, and Brandon's coaching her answers. I heard him whisper, "Remember what we practiced," when Emma hesitated. Your mom's standing there, beaming like this is all perfectly normal. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm coming. Don't let them leave with the kids. Aiden, there's one more thing. The real reason I called. Last night I went out drinking with Madison. She's a mess. The pressure about Tyler is getting to her. But when she was really drunk, she told me something. Your mom didn't just give Brandon free rent. She's been paying his legal bills, too. All of them. The whole custody fight has been funded by your mother. The final piece clicked into place. My mother wasn't just supporting Brandon's custody grab. She was financing it. Every motion filed against me, every threatening letter from his lawyer, every court appearance, all paid for by the woman who gave birth to me. I have to go get my kids, I said, already heading for the door. Be careful. Margaret's lawyer is here too. That Patricia Stern woman. They might be planning something. Let them plan. They don't get to use my children as props in their inheritance scheme. The 15-minute drive to my childhood home felt like hours. Every red light was agony as I imagined my children being coached, recorded, manipulated. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my rage had crystallized into cold determination. I didn't knock. The door was unlocked as always during family gatherings. I walked in to find a scene that would have been comical if it weren't so sinister. My mother's dining room had been transformed into what looked like a corporate boardroom. Margaret sat at the head of the table with Patricia Stern beside her. Brandon sat across from them with Emma and Noah, who looked uncomfortable in formal clothes I didn't recognize. "Mommy!" Noah jumped up, relief flooding his face. "Aiden!" My mother stood quickly, her face cycling through emotions. "What are you doing here?" "Collecting my children from an unauthorized visitation location. Brandon, you're in violation of the custody order. This visit is terminated immediately." "Now, Aiden," Brandon began in his reasonable voice, the one he used when he was lying. "Your mother is a court-approved supervisor. Everything's perfectly legal." "Show me the paperwork approving this location." He glanced at my mother, who glanced at Patricia Stern. No one produced any documents. "That's what I thought. Emma, Noah, get your things. We're leaving." "Actually," Patricia Stern interjected, "we were just having a lovely chat with the children about their hopes for the future. Very illuminating." "You were interrogating minors without parental consent or legal representation present. I hope you recorded it all, because my lawyer will want to see exactly what questions you asked my 8-year-old about her family situation." Margaret finally spoke, her voice cultured and cold. "There's no need for dramatics, Aiden. We're all family here." "No," I said firmly. "Family doesn't ambush children. Family doesn't secretly record them. Family doesn't use them as pawns in inheritance games." "How dare you?" my mother began, but I cut her off. "How dare I? You've been housing my ex-husband, paying his legal bills, lying under oath about my mental state, and now you're allowing him to violate custody orders in your home. How dare you?" Emma had moved to my side, taking my hand. Noah grabbed the other. United front against the room full of adults who'd forgotten that children were people, not props. "Such hostility," Margaret observed. "I can see why Brandon's concerned about the children's emotional environment." "The only hostile environment here is the one where children are interrogated about their parents' divorce by strangers with financial agendas." "I'm hardly a stranger. I'm their great-aunt." "Who they've never met before today. Who's using her money to manipulate family members into betraying each other. Who's recording children without consent. Yes, you're exactly the kind of influence they need." Brandon stood, his mask slipping. "You can't just walk in here and take them. It's my visitation time." "Your visitation time is Saturdays from 10 to 2 at the Family Services Center on Maple Street. This is Sunday, this is my mother's house, and this is kidnapping if you don't let them leave with me right now." "Kidnapping?" My mother gasped. "Brandon is their father, who has supervised visitation only because he drove drunk with them in the car. Or did you forget that when you were writing your affidavit about what a wonderful parent he is?" Silence fell like a hammer. Margaret's eyes narrowed as she looked between my mother and Brandon. "Drunk driving?" she asked. "Elizabeth, you didn't mention—" "It was a misunderstanding," my mother said quickly. "Aiden exaggerated." "I have the police report," I said calmly, "including the witness statement from the person who called 911. Would you like to know who that witness was? Aunt Margaret Ikosan-Wise?" My mother's face went white. "Aiden, please." "It was her. My mother. She called the police when she saw Brandon driving erratically with my children in the car. She gave a statement about how concerned she was for their safety, and now she's submitted an affidavit claiming she's never seen concerning behavior from him." The room erupted. Brandon started yelling about context and misunderstandings. My mother began crying about family loyalty. Patricia Stern was rapidly taking notes, but Margaret just sat there studying me with calculating eyes. I didn't care about any of them. I knelt down to my children's level. "Are you ready to go home?" "Yes," Emma said firmly. "I don't like it here. They keep asking weird questions and making us practice answers." "Practice answers?" I looked directly at Patricia Stern. "What kind of answers were you coaching?" "Nobody was coaching anyone," Brandon said too quickly. "That's not true." Emma said her 8-year-old integrity stronger than all the adults in the room. Daddy said I should say I miss having a normal family and that I'm sad all the time. But I'm not sad all the time, only when people lie to us. Out of the mouths of babes. I stood keeping my children close. We're leaving. Brandon, expect communication from my lawyer about this violation. Mom, your approved supervisor status will be revoked by end of business Monday. Margaret, whatever game you're playing with, your will leave my children out of it. Such a shame, Margaret said coolly. I had hoped to help secure the children's futures, but clearly their mother prefers conflict to cooperation. I prefer truth to manipulation. Novel concept in this family, I know. As we moved toward the door, Stephanie appeared from the kitchen, giving me a subtle thumbs up. My ally in the nest of vipers. But it was Madison who surprised me. She stood up from where she'd been silent in the corner, Tyler beside her looking smug. I'm leaving too, she announced. And Tyler, if you follow me, I'm calling the police. That restraining order might have expired, but I can get another one. Babe, come on, Tyler started, but Madison was already moving. I'm done. Done pretending, done being pushed, done selling my soul for money that comes with strings. Aiden's right, this is sick. My mother's tears turned to wails. You're ruining everything, both of you, Margaret, please. They're emotional, they don't mean... We mean every word I said from the doorway. And Mom, check your bank statements. Find out how much you've spent on Brandon's legal bills. Then ask yourself if betraying your daughter was worth it. We left together, Madison and I, our children between us. As we reached our cars, Emma looked up at me. Mommy, why was everyone so mean in there? Because sometimes people want money more than they want to be kind, I said honestly. But we don't have to be like that. Good, Noah chimed in. I don't want mean grandma's money anyway. Mean grandma, from the mouths of babes indeed. Madison hugged me before getting in her car. Family meeting tonight, just us and the kids. Order pizza and figure out how to fight back. Yes, I agreed. The real family meeting. As I drove away from my childhood home, I realized something had shifted. The battle lines weren't just drawn anymore. The first skirmish had been fought, and we'd escaped with the truth intact and our children safe. But Monday was coming, and with it, the real war would begin. Sunday evening found Madison and me in my living room surrounded by pizza boxes and legal documents while our kids played in the basement. The adrenaline from the afternoon's confrontation had faded, leaving exhaustion and determination in equal measure. I can't believe Mom's been paying Brandon's legal bills, Madison said, shaking her head. Actually, no, I can believe it. I just can't believe we didn't see it sooner. I showed her the documents Stephanie had brought, the emails from Janet, the growing pile of evidence. It's all connected. Mom's financial troubles, Margaret's conditions, Brandon's sudden legal resources. They've been planning this for months. What did your lawyer say about the visitation violation? Emergency hearing at 8 tomorrow morning. She's confident we can get his privileges revoked and potentially file charges for custodial interference. Taking them to an unapproved location, having them interviewed by Margaret's lawyer, he handed us ammunition. Madison picked at her pizza. You know what kills me, Tyler sitting there like he belonged? 2 years ago, Mom helped me file the restraining order against him. Now she's serving him turkey and pushing reconciliation. Money changes people, or maybe it just reveals who they really are. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number, but this time I recognized the voice immediately when I answered. Aiden, it's Jason. I'm parked outside. Can I come in? I have something you need to see. Minutes later, my brother sat across from us looking haggard. He pulled out his phone and set it on the coffee table. I recorded Mom and Margaret talking after you left. You need to hear this. He pressed play and my mother's voice filled the room, high-pitched with panic. She's going to ruin everything 40 years I've been planning for this inheritance. 40 years of being the perfect sister, and now my ungrateful daughters are destroying it all. Margaret's voice colder. Perhaps if you'd raised them with proper values. I tried. But Aiden was always willful. Always had to do things her way. Marrying Brandon was the only conventional thing she ever did, and she couldn't even make that work. And Madison, too much like her sister. I thought Tyler could stabilize her, but she's stubborn. They both are. They'd rather be right than rich. A pause, then Margaret. The documents Patricia prepared are quite clear. The trusts can only be managed by custodial parents in good standing. If Brandon gains primary custody, he will. We've built an airtight case. Aiden's emotional instability, her alienation of the children from family, her hostile behavior. By Friday, the court will see her as the problem parent. And the funds would be protected under Brandon's management. Exactly. He's agreed to a 60-40 split. 60% held for the children until they're 25-40% for management and care. Very reasonable. My hands clenched into fists. They were planning to steal 40% of any inheritance my children might receive. Jason paused the recording. There's more, but it gets worse. Do you want to hear it? Madison and I exchanged glances. Play it, I said. The recording continued. A door closing, then Brandon's voice joining the conversation. The kids did great today. Emma's smart but malleable. A few more sessions and she'll be telling the judge exactly what we need. Noah's too young to be a problem. You're sure Aiden won't fight back? Margaret asked. Brandon laughed. With what money I've destroyed her credit maxed out the cards before the divorce. She can barely afford her current lawyer. Once we file tomorrow, she'll fold. She always does when pressured. I wouldn't be so sure, my mother said nervously. You didn't see her today. She was different, stronger. That's just anger. It'll burn out. Trust me, I was married to her for 10 years. She talks tough but crumbles when it counts. By Christmas, I'll have the kids, and we'll all be one big happy family again. Right, Elizabeth? Right, my mother agreed. One big happy family. Jason stopped the recording. I left after that. Couldn't stomach anymore. But you need to know they're filing something big tomorrow. Not just custody stuff. Brandon kept mentioning the nuclear option. Any idea what that means? Madison asked. No, but Patricia Stern made some calls. I heard her mention adult protective services. My blood ran cold. They wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Madison looked confused. Claim I'm an unfit parent to the point of endangering the children. It's the nuclear option in custody battles. Make allegations serious enough that CPS has to investigate. Even if they're proven false, the investigation itself becomes a mark against you. But that's insane, Jason protested. The kids are clearly fine, happy, healthy, loved. Doesn't matter. An investigation would delay any custody hearings, give Brandon time to establish status quo with increased visitation, maybe even emergency temporary custody if they spin it right. We sat in heavy silence, absorbing the full weight of their conspiracy. Then Madison's phone chimed. She looked at it and her face went pale. It's from Tyler. He says if I don't agree to counseling with him by tomorrow, he's going to file for partial custody of the boys based on my erratic behavior today. He's not even their father, I exclaimed. No, but he lived with us for 2 years. In some states, that's enough to claim de facto parent status. Mom must have told him about it. The tentacles of this conspiracy kept reaching further. Everyone who'd ever hurt us was being weaponized against us. We need help, Jason said quietly. Real help, legal help, financial help. You can't fight this alone. He was right, but I'd depleted my savings during the divorce. Madison was barely keeping her boutique afloat. We were David facing a Goliath funded by our own mother. That's when Emma appeared at the top of the basement stairs. Mom, there's someone at the door. I peered through the peephole to see Stephanie standing there with an older man I didn't recognize. I opened the door cautiously. Aiden, this is my dad, Uncle Robert, Mom's brother. He has something to tell you. Robert Chen entered slowly, his face grave. He'd been estranged from the family for years after marrying outside the approved cultural boundaries. I barely knew him, but I remembered my mother's disdain whenever his name came up. I heard about what Elizabeth's doing, he said without preamble. Stephanie told me everything. I want to help. Why? Madison asked bluntly. You haven't been part of this family for 15 years. Because I know what it's like to be excluded for not fitting Elizabeth's image of perfect family. Because I have successful daughters who were written off as half-breeds by their own aunt. And because I've done very well in tech, well enough to ensure my sister doesn't get to destroy her children for money. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying I'll fund your legal defense, both of you. The best lawyers money can buy. Let's see how Brandon's case holds up against a real legal team. We can't accept that, I said automatically. Yes, you can. Consider it retroactive child support for all the birthdays and holidays Elizabeth made sure I missed with you kids. Besides, his smile was sharp. I'd pay twice as much just to see her face when she realizes her schemes are falling apart. Hope bloomed in my chest for the first time in days. Are you serious? Dead serious. I've already made some calls. Janet Chen is good, but for this, you need Catherine Winters. She's the best custody attorney in the state, and she owes me a favor. She'll see you at 7 a.m. before your 8 a.m. hearing. Madison Thomas Park handles restraining orders and harassment claims. He'll meet with you at the same time. Madison started crying. I don't even know what to say. Say you'll fight. Say you won't let Elizabeth sell your children for Margaret's approval. Say you'll protect what matters. Yes, we said in unison. As Uncle Robert and Stephanie left with promises to check in tomorrow, I felt the tide beginning to turn. We weren't alone. We weren't helpless. And we weren't going to fold under pressure. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from my mother. Last chance. Apologize to Margaret and Brandon, agree to counseling, and we can work this out as a family. I showed it to Madison and Jason. Then I typed my response. The only thing I'll be agreeing to is the truth being told in court. See you tomorrow. I hit send, then turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring whatever it would bring. But tonight, surrounded by siblings who'd chosen truth over money and children who'd learned integrity by watching their mother fight for it, I felt something I hadn't felt since Thanksgiving morning. Peace. The war might rage tomorrow, but tonight in this house filled with love instead of lies, we'd already won something precious. We'd kept our souls intact. And that was worth more than all of Margaret's millions. Monday arrived like a storm. By 6:45 a.m., I was sitting in Catherine Winters' office, a sleek downtown space that radiated competence and barely contained legal aggression. Catherine herself was exactly what I'd hoped, sharp, uncompromising, and utterly delighted by the complexity of the case. This recording from your brother is gold, she said, replaying Jason's audio for the third time. They admitted to planning custodial theft, financial manipulation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Your mother's affidavit compared to her original police statement, that's perjury clear-cut. What about the nuclear option Brandon mentioned? Catherine's smile was predatory. Let them try. I've already filed our motion. We're asking for an emergency injunction preventing any CPS reports based on fabricated evidence. We're also requesting sanctions against Brandon for custodial interference and against your mother for perjury. Can we prove she committed perjury? Her 911 call was recorded. Her sworn statement to police is on file. Both directly contradict her current affidavit. Plus, we have witnesses who can testify about Thanksgiving. Your cousin Stephanie already agreed to a sworn statement. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I'd turned it back on. 53 missed calls, most from my mother and Brandon. I ignored them all. There's something else, Catherine said. I did some digging into Margaret's lawyer, Patricia Stern. She's been sanctioned twice for ethics violations involving inheritance manipulation. Once we file our counterclaim, she'll likely withdraw rather than face another investigation. At 7:55 a.m., we walked into the courthouse. The first person I saw was Brandon sitting with his lawyer, looking confident. His expression faltered when he saw Catherine beside me. Catherine Winters, his lawyer whispered, audibly concerned. But it was my mother's arrival that created real drama. She swept in with Margaret and Patricia Stern, dressed like she was attending a society funeral. Her eyes met mine across the lobby, and for a moment, I saw fear flicker across her face. All rise, the bailiff called, and we entered the courtroom. What followed was 45 minutes of legal decimation. Catherine presented our emergency motion with surgical precision. The doctored visitation, the recorded conspiracy, the perjury evidence. She played Jason's recording in full, letting my mother's voice fill the courtroom as she discussed stealing 40% of my children's potential inheritance. Brandon's lawyer tried to object to claim the recording was inadmissible, but Judge Morrison had heard enough. "Mr. Hayes," the judge's voice was arctic, "did you or did you not take the minor children to an unapproved location during your supervised visitation?" "Your Honor, their grandmother is an approved supervisor." "That's not what I asked. Was the location approved?" "No, but." "Did you allow a third party to interview the children about their family situation without their mother's consent?" Brandon glanced at his lawyer, who seemed to be shrinking into his chair. "They were just talking to their aunt." "Their aunt's attorney, according to this evidence, while being coached on responses. Mr. Hayes, I'm revoking your visitation privileges pending a full review. Any contact with the minor children must now be approved by this court." "Your Honor." Brandon's mask finally slipped completely. "This is ridiculous. I'm their father." "A father who violated court orders and attempted to manipulate children for financial gain. Sit down, Mr. Hayes." But Catherine wasn't done. "Your Honor, we also moved to have Elizabeth Mitchell removed as an approved supervisor and investigated for perjury based on her contradictory sworn statements." My mother stood abruptly. "This is my daughter. I've done nothing but try to help." "Mrs. Mitchell, you'll have your chance to explain your affidavit versus your police statement from the night you reported Mr. Hayes for drunk driving with the children. For now, you're removed from any supervisory capacity." The judge turned to me. "Ms. Mitchell, the court apologizes for the failure and oversight that allowed this violation to occur. Your children's safety and well-being are paramount. The existing custody order stands with increased protections. Mr. Hayes' visitation is suspended pending review. Any attempts to circumvent this order will result in immediate arrest." We were winning, but the best was yet to come. Catherine stood again. "Your Honor, there's one more matter. We have evidence that Mrs. Elizabeth Mitchell has been financing Mr. Hayes' legal action against her own daughter. We request full financial disclosure and sanctions for this conflict of interest." "Granted. Mrs. Mitchell, you'll provide full financial records within 48 hours. Any funds provided to Mr. Hayes for legal action against Ms. Mitchell may be subject to recovery." As we left the courtroom, my mother tried to approach me. Catherine stepped between us. "Any communication goes through my office, Mrs. Mitchell, and I'd advise you to retain criminal counsel. Perjury charges are likely forthcoming." In the hallway, Brandon was raging at his lawyer while Margaret watched with cold calculation. Patricia Stern was already on her phone, probably calling her malpractice insurance. Madison emerged from a nearby courtroom looking triumphant. "Restraining order granted. Tyler can't come within 500 feet of me or the boys. And get this, the judge referenced his presence at Thanksgiving as evidence of stalking behavior. Mom's invitation actually helped prove my case." We celebrated quietly, aware of the stares and whispers around us. But I had one more move to make. That afternoon, I sat at my computer and opened Facebook. It was time for the truth to be public. I crafted my post, carefully attaching screenshots of key documents, the photo of the gifts I'd never delivered, and a simple statement. Many of you saw Thanksgiving photos from my family's gathering and wondered why my children and I weren't there. The truth is, we were specifically uninvited because my recent divorce made us too chaotic for a family dinner designed to impress a wealthy relative. What followed was a conspiracy to steal custody of my children, funded by my own mother based on lies about my mental health and false claims of alienation. Today, the court saw through these lies. My ex-husband's visitation has been revoked for endangering our children. My mother has been removed as a supervisor and faces perjury charges. I share this not for sympathy, but for transparency. Family should mean unconditional love, not conditional acceptance based on marital status or inheritance potential. My children deserve better than relatives who see them as pawns in financial games. To those who've reached out with support, thank you. To those who participated in this deception, the truth has a way of surfacing. And to my children who showed more integrity through this ordeal than most of the adults, you are my heroes. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Today I'm grateful for chosen family, honest friends, and the justice system that protected my children when their own grandparents wouldn't. I tagged everyone who'd been at Thanksgiving, including Tyler and Brandon. Then I hit share. Within minutes, the post began spreading. Comments poured in, mostly supportive, some shocked. But it was Margaret's comment that stopped everyone cold. Interesting fiction, niece. The truth will be revealed when my will is read. Some family members understand loyalty and tradition. Others clearly do not. She just admitted it, publicly, that her will was being used to manipulate family behavior. Catherine called within minutes. Did she just confess to inheritance coercion on Facebook? Please tell me you screenshot that. Already done. Beautiful. We're adding undue influence to our filing. Keep documenting everything. By evening, the post had been shared over 200 times. Messages flooded in from family members I hadn't heard from in years, many sharing their own stories of being excluded or marginalized for not fitting the family image. But the most surprising message came from Madison's son, Carter, sent from his tablet. Aunt Aiden, thank you for telling the truth. Grandma made us lie too. She said if we didn't play with Brandon and be nice to Tyler, we couldn't come to Christmas. But Mom says lying is wrong even if grown-ups tell you to. You're brave. 8 years old and already understanding what too many adults refuse to see. That truth matters more than money, that integrity matters more than inheritance. I showed the message to Emma and Noah as I tucked them in that night. See, I told them, telling the truth is always the right choice even when it's hard, even when people get angry. Is Grandma going to jail for lying? Noah asked. I don't know, baby, but she's going to have to answer for it. Good, Emma said firmly. Liars should have consequences. As I turned off their light, I realized something profound had shifted. This wasn't just about custody or inheritance anymore. This was about breaking a generational cycle of lies, manipulation, and conditional love. My phone buzzed with a final text from Jason. Mom's locked herself in her room, Dad's sleeping in the guest house. Margaret's on the phone with lawyers. You did it, Aiden. You exposed them all. I hadn't done it alone. It had taken a village of truth-tellers from Stephanie's courage to Jason's recordings to Uncle Robert's support. But together we'd stripped away the facade and revealed the rot beneath. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Brandon would regroup. My mother would play victim. Margaret would use her money to punish those who defied her. But tonight my children slept peacefully in their beds, protected by truth and surrounded by love. And that victory was worth any inheritance in the world. The aftermath of Monday's court hearing and Facebook revelation created a family earthquake that measured on the Richter scale. By Tuesday morning, my phone had logged over 300 notifications. The family group chat had exploded into warring factions with cousins, aunts, and relatives I barely knew choosing sides. Uncle Robert called early. Elizabeth's been calling everyone playing victim. Half the family believes her version. The other half saw your post and are asking questions she can't answer. Let her spin, Catherine had advised. Every lie she tells now is another piece of evidence. But I wasn't prepared for Madison's call at noon. Aiden, you need to see what's happening at Mom's house. I'm parked outside. It's chaos. What kind of chaos? Moving trucks, Dad's packing, he's leaving her. I drove over immediately, parking down the street from our childhood home. Sure enough, a small moving truck sat in the driveway. Through the front window, I could see my father carrying boxes, his face set in grim determination. My mother stood on the lawn in her bathrobe, hair wild, screaming at anyone who would listen. Margaret watched from the porch like a disapproving statue while neighbors peered through curtains. 43 years, my mother wailed. How can you leave after 43 years? My father emerged with another box, saw our cars, and walked over. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. "Girls," he said simply, "I'm sorry for all of it." "Dad, what's happening?" Madison asked. "What should have happened years ago? I'm done enabling her. When I saw that recording heard her planning to steal from her own grandchildren, that wasn't the woman I married. Or maybe it was, and I just refused to see it." "Where are you going?" "Apartment near the base. Already signed a lease. I can't watch her destroy herself and everyone around her for money anymore." My mother noticed us and came charging over. She pointed at me. "You did this. You destroyed our family." "No, Mom," I said calmly. "You destroyed it when you chose Margaret's money over your grandchildren's well-being. I was trying to secure everyone's future by lying under oath, by funding Brandon's custody battle, by housing my abuser." She turned to my father. Tell them how I've sacrificed everything for this family." "Elizabeth, stop." His voice was tired. "The only thing you sacrificed was your integrity, and you dragged me down with you. If you leave, you get nothing. The house is in my name. Everything is in my name." He smiled sadly. "I know. You made sure of that years ago, but I'd rather have nothing than continue being your accomplice." A car pulled up. Brandon climbed out, followed by his lawyer. My mother brightened. "Brandon, tell them how we're going to fix this." Brandon looked between all of us, calculating. "Actually, Elizabeth, we need to talk, privately, about our financial arrangement." "What financial arrangement?" Margaret's voice cut across the yard. Everyone froze. Brandon's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but Brandon's desperation won. "The $50,000 she promised me, for the legal fees and other expenses." $50,000. Margaret descended from the porch. "Elizabeth, you told me you were struggling financially, that you needed my help, yet you had $50,000 to give this man." My mother's face went white. "It was a loan against the inheritance I was investing in the children's future. By bribing their father to steal custody?" "Brandon, shut up," my mother hissed, but he was past caring. "She promised me $50,000 plus 40% of whatever the kids inherit. All I had to do was get custody and play along with the family reconciliation story. But now my visitation's revoked, and I need that money for an appeal." Margaret turned her ice queen gaze on my mother. "You've been spending my money before you even inherited it." "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that. Patricia." Margaret called to her lawyer, who'd been documenting everything on her phone. "I need you to prepare something." "Already on it," Patricia confirmed. Jason arrived then, taking in the scene with wide eyes. "What did I miss?" "Mom getting caught in her own web," Madison summarized. Margaret addressed all of us. "I came here believing Elizabeth when she said her daughters were troubled, unstable, destructive to family unity. But what I've witnessed is a woman so consumed by greed that she'd sell her own grandchildren for a percentage." She turned to me. "Aiden, I owe you an apology. Your reaction to being excluded from Thanksgiving wasn't dramatic or unstable. It was the rational response of a mother protecting her children from wolves in sheep's clothing." My mother fell to her knees. "Margaret, please, I did it all for you, to show you we were worthy." "Worthy." Margaret's laugh was bitter. "You've shown me exactly what you are. A liar, a manipulator, and a woman who values money over blood." "But the inheritance will go to those who've shown true character through this ordeal." She looked at me and Madison. "Those who chose truth over profit, who protected their children instead of selling them." "No." My mother's wail could probably be heard 3 blocks away. "You can't. I planned everything. I sacrificed everything." "You sacrificed nothing. Your daughters sacrificed. Your grandchildren sacrificed. Your husband sacrificed his self-respect. You counted money that was never yours." Brandon stepped forward. "What about the $50,000? "What $50,000? Margaret asked coolly. I see no evidence of any such arrangement. Do you, Patricia? None whatsoever. Though I do see grounds for extortion charges if Mr. Hayes continues to harass Mrs. Mitchell for imaginary debts. Brandon's face went purple. She promised we had a deal. Your deal was criminal conspiracy, Catherine interjected, appearing beside me. I hadn't even heard her car. I'd leave now if I were you before I call the police. Brandon looked around wildly, realizing he'd lost every angle. His lawyer pulled him back to their car, probably explaining how badly he'd just incriminated himself. My father loaded the last box into his truck. Elizabeth, the divorce papers will be filed this week. Don't contest it. You've done enough damage. You can't divorce me. I won't allow it. It's not your choice anymore. He turned to us. Girls, I'm sorry I didn't protect you from this sooner. I let my desire for peace override my duty as your father. That changes now. He drove away, leaving my mother kneeling on the lawn of the house she'd mortgaged for a dream of wealth that had just evaporated. Margaret approached me. We should talk, all of us, properly this time, without the lies and manipulation. Thursday, my hotel for tea. You Madison your children if you'd like. Let's discuss the future like civilized people. What? I asked, still suspicious. Because blood should mean something, because your children deserve better than what they've witnessed, and because I have $12 million that needs to go somewhere, and I'd rather it go to people with spines than sycophants. She walked to her car, Patricia trailing behind. As they drove away, my mother finally found her feet. This isn't over, she snarled. I'll contest everything. The divorce, the will, all of it. You think you've won, I'll destroy you all. Mom, Madison said quietly, you already tried, and look where it got you. We left her there ranting at the empty yard. As I drove home, Emma asked from the back seat, is Grandma sick like in her mind? I think she might be, honey. Sometimes people get so focused on wanting something that they forget what really matters. Like how Daddy forgot us when he wanted to gamble. The parallel was painfully accurate. Yes, like that. Will she get better? I thought about the wild look in my mother's eyes, the complete disconnect from reality. I don't know, baby, but that's not our job to fix. That evening, as I helped with homework and made dinner, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ms. Mitchell. This is Officer Davies with the police department. We've had a complaint filed against you for elder abuse and financial exploitation of one Elizabeth Mitchell. We'll need you to come in for questioning. The nuclear option. Even after everything, my mother was still fighting, still trying to destroy me. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I'll be there with my attorney in the morning, officer, and we'll be happy to share our evidence of the actual financial exploitation and conspiracy, including recordings. Recordings. Yes, of Mrs. Mitchell planning to defraud her grandchildren. We have quite a file. I see. Perhaps you should bring that evidence when you come in. As I hung up, I realized the war wasn't over. It had simply entered a new phase. But now the sides were clear truth versus lies, integrity versus greed, real family versus the illusion of it. And I knew which side would win. Wednesday morning arrived with a bitter cold that matched the chill in my family's atmosphere. Catherine met me at the police station at exactly 8 a.m., carrying a file box that contained every piece of evidence we'd collected. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Your mother's about to learn what happens when you file false police reports, she said. This is going to be educational. Officer Davies turned out to be a seasoned detective who'd seen every family drama imaginable. He listened patiently as my mother, who'd arrived with a nervous-looking public defender, spun her tale of elder abuse and financial manipulation. According to her version, I'd systematically isolated her from the family, turned everyone against her, and was attempting to steal her inheritance from Margaret. Ms. Mitchell. Detective Davies addressed my mother when she finally wound down. Do you have any evidence of financial exploitation? She's poisoning my sister against me, making her change her will. That's not financial exploitation. Do you have evidence that your daughter has taken money from you? Well, no, but she's trying to. Catherine leaned forward. Detective, may I? She pulled out the recording device and played Jason's audio. My mother's face went from righteous indignation to ash gray as her own voice filled the room discussing the $50,000 she'd given Brandon, the 40% cut of the children's inheritance, the deliberate lies told to Margaret. Additionally, Catherine continued producing documents. We have bank records showing Mrs. Elizabeth Mitchell has paid approximately $38,000 in legal fees for Brandon Hayes' custody battle against her own daughter. We have her sworn affidavit containing provable lies. We have evidence of conspiracy to commit custodial interference. The public defender looked like he wanted to disappear. My mother sat frozen, her carefully constructed victim narrative crumbling. Detective Davies turned to her. Mrs. Mitchell filing a false police report is a crime. Based on what I'm seeing, you're the one who's been financially exploiting family relationships. I'm dismissing this complaint and referring the matter to the district attorney for possible charges against you. This is a conspiracy, my mother shrieked. They're all against me. Ma'am, you're free to go, but I suggest you get a better attorney. You're going to need one. As we left the station, Catherine's phone was already ringing. It's the family court clerk, she said after answering. Brandon's lawyer is withdrawing from the case. Apparently his client can't pay the retainer anymore. Without my mother's funding, Brandon's legal assault had collapsed. But the best news was yet to come. That afternoon, I received a certified letter from Margaret's attorney. Not the threatening kind I'd grown accustomed to, but something entirely different. Dear Ms. Mitchell, after careful consideration and recent revelations, Ms. Margaret Chen wishes to establish educational trusts for Emma and Noah Mitchell, with you as sole trustee. The trusts will be funded with $500,000 each accessible for educational expenses and disbursed in full upon college graduation. No conditions, no strings. Additionally, Ms. Chen is establishing a business grant of $250,000 for Madison Mitchell's boutique expansion. Tea tomorrow remains scheduled. Ms. Chen looks forward to meeting her great nieces and nephews without pretense or manipulation. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in. No requirements for reconciliation, no controlling conditions, just straightforward support for the next generation. Madison called crying. Did you get the letter, Aiden? She's giving us money without making us dance for it? I know, I can't believe it. Mom's gonna lose her mind. She was right. Within hours, my mother was blowing up everyone's phone, demanding to know why she wasn't included, threatening to contest any gifts to us. But Margaret had thought of that too. A follow-up email from Patricia Stern explained that the trusts were irrevocable and structured in a way that made them legally bulletproof against challenges. Thursday's tea was unlike any family gathering I'd ever attended. Margaret's hotel suite was elegant but warm. She'd arranged for activities for the children while we talked, and for the first time I saw her smile genuinely as Emma showed her a science project and Noah chattered about his favorite books. They're delightful, she said after the kids went to play. Intelligent kind, well-mannered. Nothing like the chaotic monsters Elizabeth described. Thank you for the trusts, I said. But why after everything? Margaret set down her teacup. Because I've been where you are. 40 years ago, I divorced my first husband. My family, including Elizabeth, treated me like a pariah, said I was destroying family values, ruining my future. But I rebuilt my life, made my fortune, and learned that family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about character. Mom never mentioned you were divorced, Madison said. Of course not. It didn't fit her narrative. She spent decades pretending I'm some paragon of traditional values because it suited her image. But I built my wealth as a single woman who refused to accept that divorce meant failure. She looked directly at me. When I saw you fighting for your children, refusing to buckle under pressure, standing up to lies even when it cost you everything, I saw myself, And I realized Elizabeth had learned nothing from watching me rebuild. She only saw the money. What happens now, I asked. Now you live your lives, raise your children, build your futures. The trusts are there to ensure education is never a financial burden. As for the rest of my estate, she smiled. Let's just say it will go to organizations that support women leaving abusive marriages and rebuilding their lives. Elizabeth's reaction should be interesting. We left that meeting feeling lighter than we had in months, but the universe wasn't done with its surprises. Friday brought the news that Brandon had been arrested, not for the custody case, but for check fraud. Apparently, without my mother's financial support and desperate for money, he'd tried to cash some bad checks at a casino. His supervised visitation was permanently revoked, and he was facing actual jail time. My mother, meanwhile, had barricaded herself in her house. Jason reported that she'd papered the windows with Margaret's photos crossed out in red ink and was calling lawyers to contest a will that hadn't even been finalized yet. The divorce papers from my father had sent her into a spiral of rage, posting on Facebook that got her account suspended. It's sad, Jason said. She had everything. A family who loved her grandchildren, who adored her a comfortable life. But it wasn't enough. She wanted millions she hadn't earned and was willing to destroy everyone to get them. Saturday afternoon, Catherine called with final updates. The DA declined to prosecute your mother for the false report, but she's on their radar now. Brandon took a plea deal, 6 months jail, 3 years probation, and the family court made your custody order permanent with no possibility of modification for 5 years. You won Aiden, completely. That evening, I sat with my children as we hung the last of our Christmas decorations. The tree wasn't as large as the one at Grandma's house usually was. The decorations weren't as elaborate, but the peace in our home was priceless. Mom, Emma said thoughtfully, I'm glad we didn't go to Thanksgiving at Grandma's. You are... Yeah. If we'd gone, we might never have known how mean they really were. We might have kept trusting them and getting hurt. Now we know who really loves us. From the mouths of babes once again. Noah looked up from his ornament. Can we invite Aunt Margaret to our Christmas? Would you like that? She's nice, and she smells like cookies, and she said I could call her Auntie M like in The Wizard of Oz. I smiled. I'll ask her. As bedtime approached, Emma asked one more question. Do you think Grandma will ever say sorry? I thought about my mother alone in her mortgaged house, surrounded by the wreckage of her schemes. I don't know, baby. Some people never learn to apologize. But that's their burden to carry, not ours. Good, she said firmly, because I don't want to forgive her yet. Maybe when I'm older. That's okay. Forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation, and it's something you do for yourself, not for them. That night, after the children were asleep, I stood at my window looking at the snow beginning to fall. Somewhere across town, my mother was probably ranting about injustice and stolen fortunes. Brandon was in a jail cell contemplating his choices. My father was starting fresh in a small apartment, free for the first time in decades. But here in this small house, that mortgage statement said I couldn't afford, but somehow always managed to keep my children were safe. They had trust funds for college that no one could touch. They had an aunt building a business empire with her grant. They had a great-great-aunt who'd chosen character over manipulation. Most importantly, they had a mother who'd refused to sell their security for any price. Sometimes winning doesn't look like inheriting millions. Sometimes it looks like keeping your integrity intact while everything burns down around you. Sometimes it's teaching your children that love isn't conditional, that truth matters more than money, that family is about who shows up honestly, not who shares your DNA. As snow continued to fall, I allowed myself a moment of pure gratitude. We'd survived the storm. We'd exposed the lies. We'd protected what mattered. And that was worth more than all the inheritances in the world. 6 months later, spring had arrived with a promise of renewal that felt personal. Our small house, the one my mother had sneered at during her rare visits, bloomed with fresh possibilities. Emma's science fair project on inherited traits versus chosen behaviors had won first place at regionals, a not-so-subtle commentary on our family drama that her teachers pretended not to notice. Noah had discovered a love for reading that kept me busy with library trips, his appetite for stories as endless as his questions about why families sometimes hurt each other. The doorbell rang on a Saturday morning in May. I opened it to find my father standing there looking healthier than he had in years. The stress lines had softened, his military posture had relaxed into something more genuine. "Hi, Dad." "Aiden, I was hoping. Could I take the kids to the park? I have something for them." I'd been cautious about rebuilding our relationship, but he'd been consistent. Therapy twice a week, Al-Anon meetings to deal with his enabling patterns, and not once had he tried to defend my mother or minimize what had happened. "Kids' grandpa's here." They ran to him with the pure joy children reserve for grandparents who've proven themselves safe again. As they gathered their jackets, he handed me an envelope. "What's this?" "Read it later. It's an apology. A real one, not just words." At the park, I watched from a bench as he pushed Noah on the swings and helped Emma with her skateboarding. The envelope contained a handwritten letter and a check. "Aiden, I failed you as a father when I chose comfortable lies over difficult truths. I let your mother's sickness infect our family because facing it meant admitting my own weakness. Every dollar here represents a day I stayed silent when I should have protected you. It's not enough, will never be enough, but it's yours. Use it for the kids, for yourself, for therapy, to heal the wounds I let happen. I'm proud of the woman you've become, despite my failures. Your courage in protecting your children showed me what real parenting looks like. Love, Dad." The check was for $20,000, his entire savings, I realized. Not guilt money like my mother's bribes, but genuine restitution. When they returned, the kids chattering about their plans for a summer garden with Grandpa, my phone rang. Madison. "You'll never guess who just walked into my boutique." "Who?" "Tyler, with an apology and a check for the $10,000 he stole from my business account when we were together. Said he's in AA making amends." "Do you believe him?" "I believe the check cleared. That's enough for now. But here's the interesting part. He says Mom's been calling him, begging him to testify that we were back together. Offered him money she doesn't have. He recorded the calls and gave them to his sponsor." My mother, still scheming even after losing everything. "Have you heard from her?" Madison asked. "Not since February's registered letter demanding I return childhood photos she claims I stole. Catherine handled it. Jason says she's getting worse. The house is in foreclosure. She's been telling neighbors we stole her inheritance. Mrs. Patterson finally called Adult Protective Services because Mom's been wandering the street in her nightgown ranting about Margaret. It should have felt like victory, but it only brought sadness. Mental illness or chosen delusion, the result was the same, a woman destroying herself rather than admitting fault." That afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Stephanie arrived with her daughter Lily and someone I didn't recognize, an elegant woman in her 50s. "Aiden, this is Dr. Sarah Chen, my mom. Your mom's sister-in-law, technically, though they haven't spoken in 20 years. Sarah Chen smiled warmly. "Robert told me about your strength through all this. I wanted to meet the niece who finally stood up to Elizabeth's madness." We sat in my backyard watching the children play. Sarah was a psychiatrist, and her insights into my mother were both validating and heartbreaking. Elizabeth always exhibited narcissistic tendencies, but they were manageable when she got her way. The promise of Margaret's money activated something darker. When narcissistic supply is threatened, the crash can be spectacular. Is it treatable? Only if the person admits they need help. From what Robert tells me, Elizabeth's still convinced she's the victim. As if summoned by the discussion, my phone lit up with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You ruined everything." My mother's voice was raw, unhinged. "Margaret died. Did you know that died and left me nothing? It's all your fault." I put the phone on speaker, nodding to Sarah, who gestured to keep her talking. Mom, when did Margaret die? Last week, and her will. Her will is an abomination. Millions to charity trusts, for your brats, business grants to Madison. But for me, for your mother who loved her nothing. She even mentioned me by name as someone who valued money over family and should seek help for her greed addiction. Greed addiction. Can you believe it? Mom, where are you? Where am I? I'm in my house, the one the bank says isn't mine anymore, surrounded by the ashes of the family you destroyed. Do you have food heat? Are you taking care of yourself? Don't you dare pretend to care you did this, you and your truth-telling and your precious integrity. I hope you're happy. Mom, I'm going to call someone to check on you. Don't bother. I have new family now. People who understand loyalty. People who appreciate me. The line went dead. Sarah shook her head. She's deteriorating. The new family is probably whoever will listen to her victim narrative. This won't end well without intervention. 2 weeks later, it didn't. Jason called early on a Sunday morning. Mom's been arrested. She tried to break into Margaret's lawyer's office, said she was retrieving her inheritance. The security footage is... She's clearly not well, Aiden. She's on a psychiatric hold now. I felt relief mixed with profound sadness. My mother, who'd once hosted elegant dinners and charmed everyone she met, reduced to breaking and entering in pursuit of money that was never hers. What happens now? Dad's meeting with the doctors tomorrow. Maybe forced treatment will help. Or maybe this is who she always was, just more concentrated. The next day brought Margaret's funeral, a small, elegant affair that reflected her values. Madison and I attended with our children, sitting in a row of people who'd chosen truth over money. Uncle Robert gave a eulogy about his sister's journey from bitter divorce to business success, her commitment to helping women escape bad marriages, her late-life realization that family meant more than blood. She told me, he said, looking at Madison and me, that seeing her nieces fight for their children's well-being restored her faith in family. She died knowing her money would fund education and businesses, not greed and manipulation. After the service, Patricia Stern handed us final letters from Margaret. Mine read, "Dearest Aiden, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. But what you taught me lives on. That integrity matters more than inheritance. The children deserve protection over profit. That family is about showing up honestly, not showing off falsely. Your mother saw my money as her due. You saw your children as your duty. The difference defined everything. Live well, love freely. Teach Emma and Noah that wealth isn't what you inherit, but what you build with your own hands and heart. With love and respect, Aunt Margaret." That evening we held our own gathering. Dad Madison, her boys, Jason, Stephanie, Uncle Robert, and Aunt Sarah, and various cousins who'd reached out during the drama to offer support. The family that had chosen each other over choosing sides. Emma stood to make a toast with her juice glass. To Aunt Margaret, who showed us that money can't buy love, but love can build anything. Noah added, and to Mommy, who protected us even when it was really hard. To chosen family, Madison added. To truth over treasure, Jason continued. To redemption, my father said quietly. We clinked glasses in my small dining room, the one my mother had called cramped, but it held everyone who mattered, with room to spare for love, laughter, and the kind of wealth that couldn't be counted in dollars. Later, as I tucked the children into bed, Emma asked, "Do you think Grandma will ever get better?" "I hope so, sweetheart, but that's her journey to take." "I'm glad we have our family," Noah said sleepily. "The real one." "Me too, baby, me too." As I turned off their light, I thought about the journey from that November morning when my mother called to uninvite us from Thanksgiving. The pain, betrayal, fear, and fighting, the casualties and victories, the truths revealed and lies exposed. But mostly I thought about the family forged in the fire of that conflict, the bonds strengthened by shared truth, the future secured not by manipulation but by mutual support. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, My mother's mental health crisis, ongoing legal matters, the daily work of healing and rebuilding. But tonight, in a house filled with chosen family and protected children, I felt the kind of peace that no inheritance could buy. We'd lost a fortune and promised millions. We'd gained something priceless, the knowledge that we were enough just as we were, that our worth wasn't measured in Margaret's will or my mother's approval, but in our own actions and choices. And that was the greatest inheritance of all. 1 year later, on a crisp Thanksgiving morning, I stood in the kitchen of a restaurant that still smelled of fresh paint and possibilities. Aiden's table was stenciled in elegant letters on the window, the logo Emma had designed, featuring a tree with roots that spelled out, "Family grows here." The journey from that devastating Thanksgiving to this moment had been anything but smooth. The restaurant came from my father's restitution, money combined with a small business loan that Uncle Robert had co-signed. Every dollar stretched, every decision weighted with the knowledge that this wasn't just a business, but a statement we could build something beautiful from the ashes of what had burned. "Mom, the news crew is here." Noah called from the dining room where he was carefully folding napkins into turkey shapes, a skill he'd practiced for weeks. Today wasn't just any opening. It was our first annual Everyone's Table Thanksgiving dinner, offering free meals to families in need, particularly those dealing with divorce, estrangement, or family conflict. The local news had picked up the story after Emma wrote a letter to the editor about families who love conditionally and how kids just want somewhere safe to belong. Madison burst through the kitchen doors, her catering expertise on full display. "First batch of turkeys is perfect. Sweet potatoes are divine. And Tyler just dropped off 5 cases of wine for the paying dinner service tomorrow." Tyler's journey toward redemption had been genuine. 18 months sober, working with a therapist who specialized in narcissistic abuse patterns, and slowly rebuilding trust through consistent actions rather than empty promises. He'd become our wine supplier at wholesale, cost one small gesture in a long road of making amends. "Where's Dad?" I asked, scanning the organized chaos of our kitchen. "Loading room checking in the donated groceries. Sarah's with him, making sure we have enough for all the takeaway boxes." My father and Dr. Sarah Chen had found something unexpected in the rubble of our family crisis, a partnership built on shared values and mutual respect. Watching him bloom in a healthy relationship had been its own form of healing. Catherine Winters arrived with her family, having become more friend than lawyer over the months of legal battles. "Smells amazing in here. Also thought you should know Brandon's probation officer approved his request." My stomach tightened. "He's coming." "Just to drop off his donation. He won't stay or have contact with the kids. It's part of his making amends process." Brandon had served 4 months of his 6-month sentence, getting out early for good behavior. The gambling addiction treatment in prison had been a wake-up call. Like Tyler, he was trying to rebuild, though his road was longer and more complex given the custody violations. Through the window, I saw him pull up, looking smaller, somehow diminished by consequences. He carried a box to the donation table outside, left an envelope with Madison, and drove away without trying to enter or make contact. Progress. "What's in the envelope?" I asked Madison when she came back in. $1,000 cash for the dinner fund and a letter for the kids. Said to give it to you to decide if and when they should see it. Small steps, appropriate boundaries. It was more than I dared hope for a year ago. By 11 a.m., volunteers had arrived in force. Stephanie and her parents, Jason, with his new girlfriend cousins, who'd reached out during the crisis and stayed connected after. Even Mrs. Patterson from next door to my mother's house came bringing her famous green bean casserole and a hug that said she understood choosing truth over comfortable lies. At noon, we opened the doors. They came in waves. Single parents with children clinging to their hands, elderly people whose families had fractured, young adults estranged from parents who couldn't accept their truth, divorced fathers trying to make holidays special on limited budgets, grandparents denied access to grandchildren over family feuds. Each had a story, Each had a wound. Each needed what we offered, a place where family was defined by presence, not pretense. Emma and Noah worked as greeters, their natural warmth putting nervous children at ease. They designed a kids' corner with crafts and games, understanding intimately how it felt to be small in a world of adult conflicts. "Welcome to Aiden's table," Emma told each family. "Here everyone belongs." Halfway through service, Jason pulled me aside. "There's someone here asking for you." In the corner booth sat a woman I almost didn't recognize, my mother, but transformed. The wild hair was neatly cut, the designer clothes replaced by simple, clean garments. Most striking were her eyes, clear for the first time in years, holding something I'd never seen before: genuine humility. "Hello, Aiden." I sat across from her, my body tense with protective instinct. "Mom, how are you?" 312 days sober, she said quietly. Turns out I inherited more than money addiction from my father. The psychiatric hold led to dual diagnosis treatment: narcissistic personality disorder with substance-induced psychosis. "I didn't know you were drinking." "Pills. Started for anxiety years ago. Escalated when Margaret began talking about her will. By last Thanksgiving, I was taking enough Xanax to sedate a horse. Made the lying easier, made everything easier until it all crashed down." She pulled out a worn notebook. Step 9, making amends. "I know I can't just apologize and make it better, but I need to try." "Mom." "Please, let me say this. I chose money over my children. I housed your abuser and funded his attempt to steal custody. I lied under oath. I tried to destroy you because you wouldn't play my game. There's no excuse. Mental illness explains but doesn't absolve. I'm sorry, Aiden. Deeply, truly sorry." I studied this stranger wearing my mother's face. "Why today?" "Because I've been sitting in my car for an hour watching families go in. Families you're feeding for free. The restaurant you built despite everything I did. And I realized this is what family actually looks like. Not Margaret's millions or my schemes, but this: feeding people, welcoming the broken, building instead of destroying." "Are you asking to stay?" "No, I'm not ready. Neither are you. Neither are the kids. I just needed you to know. The woman who did those things, she's who I was. I'm trying to become someone else, someone who might someday deserve a seat at your table." She stood to leave, then paused. "The house sold. After the bank took their share and the debts were paid, there was a little left. I put it in trusts for Emma and Noah. Real ones. No conditions. Catherine has the paperwork." After she left, I stood in my bustling restaurant watching my chosen family serve our community family. Madison caught my eye and raised an eyebrow. I shook my head. Not today. Maybe not for many todays. But perhaps someday. The afternoon brought more surprises. Patricia Stern arrived with a substantial donation and news that several of Margaret's charity beneficiaries wanted to partner with our community dinner program. The local food bank offered regular supplies. 3 other restaurants wanted to join next year's effort. As evening approached and the last of our 247 guests finished their meals, Emma and Noah presented me with a plaque they'd made in art class: "World's Strongest Mom Who Taught Us Family Means Showing Up." "You showed up for us when everyone else left," Emma said. "Now we get to show up for others." "Can we do this every year?" Noah asked. "Feed people who don't have anywhere to go." "Every year, I promised." Jason raised his glass of cider. "A toast to Aiden's table where everyone has a seat." "To chosen family," Madison added. "To redemption," my father said, Sarah's hand in his. "To truth over treasure," Stephanie called out. "To showing up," I finished. As we clinked glasses, I thought about the journey from that November morning when chaos became the excuse to exclude us. The pain had been real, the betrayal devastating, the fight exhausting. But we'd emerged not just intact, but transformed. We'd learned that family wasn't about blood or marriage certificates or inheritance promises. It was about showing up honestly, fighting for each other's well-being, choosing love over money every single time. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Watch the news story about your restaurant? You've built something beautiful from our family's ashes. Proud of you, Mom." I showed it to Emma, who read it thoughtfully. "Maybe next year." "Maybe," I agreed. "Healing takes time." As we cleaned up together, volunteers and family working side by side, Noah asked, "Mom, are we rich now?" I looked around at the full hearts and empty plates, the community we'd fed, and the family we'd found, the future we'd built with our own hands. "Yes, baby, we're the richest family I know." And in that moment, in that place, built from pain but furnished with hope, I knew it was true. We'd lost an inheritance of millions but gained something priceless, the knowledge that love multiplies when divided among those who need it most. Margaret's money had gone to charities and education as she'd intended, but her greatest gift had been the lesson learned in its pursuit, that family wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in showing up, showing grace, and showing others they're worthy of a seat at the table. As we locked up and headed home, Emma took one hand and Noah the other. Behind us, Madison linked arms with our father and Sarah. Jason and Stephanie debated pie recipes. Our odd patched-together chosen family walked into the November night rich beyond measure, in all the ways that truly mattered. "Same time next year?" Emma asked. "Same time next year," I confirmed. "And every year after, because this is what we do now. We show up, we serve. We make sure everyone knows they have a place at the table." "Even Grandma?" Noah wondered. "When she's ready, when we're ready, when it's safe for everyone." "That's very grown up," he decided. You know what sometimes being grown up means? Admitting you're still growing. As we reached our cars, my father pulled me aside. Elizabeth would have been furious to know Margaret's money built something this beautiful. "No," I corrected gently. "Margaret's money helped, but we built this, all of us, with our choices, our courage, and our commitment to doing better than what was done to us." He nodded, understanding blooming. "You're right. You've always been right. Family isn't what you're given. It's what you build. And what we've built is pretty amazing." "Yes," he agreed, looking back at our illuminated restaurant, at the family laughing in the parking lot, at the future stretching bright before us. "Yes, it is." That night, I found myself standing at the same window where I'd stood a year ago, watching snow begin to fall. But everything else had changed. The children, safe in their beds, weren't just surviving, but thriving. The family surrounding us was chosen and choosing us back every day. The restaurant would open tomorrow for paying customers, sustainable and real. Most importantly, we'd broken the cycle. Emma and Noah would grow up knowing family meant showing up, not showing off. That love was unconditional even when relationships had conditions. That truth mattered more than money, integrity, more than inheritance. My phone lit up with one final message, this one from Catherine. "Thought you should know. Your story inspired 3 of my other clients to fight back against family financial abuse. You didn't just save your kids, Aiden. You lit a path for others. Happy Thanksgiving." I smiled, put the phone away, and went to check on my children one more time. They slept peacefully, unaware that their college was funded, their futures secured, their hearts protected by a village of people who'd chosen love over money. Tomorrow would bring its challenges. The restaurant to run relationships, to navigate boundaries, to maintain. But tonight's snow falling on a world we'd rebuilt with our own hands, I felt nothing but gratitude. We'd won. Not Margaret's millions, but something far more valuable. We'd won the right to define family for ourselves. We'd won freedom from manipulation and lies. We'd won the chance to build something better. And at Aiden's table, everyone would always have a seat. As I close the door on this chapter of our lives and look toward all the chapters yet to be written, I can't help but think about families everywhere facing their own versions of this story. Maybe it's not about inheritance. Maybe it's about acceptance or love with conditions, or the price of being yourself in a family that demands performance. To everyone who's ever been told they're too much or not enough for their own family table, you deserve a place where you're welcomed exactly as you are. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Sometimes protecting your children means protecting them from people who share their DNA. Sometimes the greatest inheritance you can give them is the knowledge that love shouldn't cost them their truth. What's your story? Have you ever had to choose between family approval and your own well-being? Have you built your own table when you weren't welcome at another? Have you learned that sometimes love means letting go of people who can only love you when you play your assigned role? Share your thoughts below. Let's build a community of people who understand that family isn't about blood or money or meeting someone else's expectations. It's about showing up, telling the truth, and making room at the table for everyone who needs a place to belong. If this story resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. Like this, if you believe families should love unconditionally. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about choosing truth over treasure integrity, over inheritance. And remember, your worth isn't measured by anyone's approval or any amount of money. You are valuable simply because you exist. You deserve love without conditioned support, without manipulation, and a family that celebrates your truth instead of demanding you hide it. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May your holidays be filled with chosen family honest love and the kind of wealth that multiplies when shared. Until next time, remember, the best tables are the ones where everyone has a seat. Every voice matters, and love is the only currency that counts. With gratitude and hope for your own journey, Aiden. P.S. To those still fighting for their truth, still protecting their children, still building their own tables, you're braver than you know. Keep going. It gets better, and one day you'll look back and be amazed at how far you've come.